Batman Fascist Part 4, The Dark Knight. Right. I was supposed to make that one a long time ago. Kind of lost track of that one. How long is it? It's been a year, hasn't it? Well, anyway, in the year since that last Batman video, the one where in the middle of it, I just had to pause the recording because I had just found out, oh shit, Donald Trump got reelected. Yeah, in the year since that, I have had plenty of time to think about fascism, because of all the fascism. Why has this become my yearly Christmas special? So, Batman. The Dark Knight, is he fascist? To recap, no, kinda, and no. But what about the version of Batman played by Christian Bale, who appeared in the trilogy of Batman movies directed by Christopher Nolan? Is he a fascist? Well, you see, the thing is, I think we should probably start this video by going over the two cataclysmic events that led to the creation of this version of Batman. Those being Batman and Robin's poor box office returns and 9/11. God, this is such a cheery Christmas special, isn't it? Batman and Robin wasn't a very good movie. That isn't a hot take. It was silly and campy and had bat nipples, and none of these things are the reason it was a bad movie. It was a bad movie because of a mediocre plot, something plenty of serious movies feature. But Batman and Robin only made about $100 million, and this was blamed on the silliness. So, for the next Batman movie, they decided there would be no more neon street gangs, no more bat credit card, no more lame puns, and no more surfing away from exploding rocket ships, even though that's the best scene in the entire fucking movie. Also, 4 years after Batman and Robin, there was this big thing that happened that made a lot of people very upset. The September 11 terrorist attacks radically reshaped American culture. There was the beginning of this era of fear and militarism, this era where Americans worshiped soldiers and nationalism, where the greatest evil imaginable was terrorism. Or more specifically, what the United States government considered to be terrorism. I mean, American soldiers blow up weddings, and that's not considered terrorism. The point is, the 2000s were defined by the shadow of 9/11. It was this era of reactionary politics where any authoritarianism was acceptable if it was justified under an argument of fighting terrorism. And the fears of this era cannot be separated from the Dark Knight trilogy. I was born in 1999. I don't remember or really have any strong feelings whatsoever about 9/11. Post 9/11 authoritarian politics aren't some stunning change to the world order to me. They're just the status quo. That doesn't mean they're good. It just means that they're what I'm used to. I can't really offer a first-hand account on how 9/11 changed culture, but I can notice how movies changed. The 2000s were filled with these gritty, real-is-round, quote-unquote realistic movies. It was an era lacking in idealism, an era of macho-ness and American nationalism. It's the era that gave us the Michael Bay Transformers movies. This is a hard thing to quantify specifically, but there is a definite different feeling in a lot of action movies from this era, and the Dark Knight trilogy exemplifies it perfectly. These movies were made to be more grounded. Quote director Christopher Nolan, "The world of Batman is that of grounded reality. Burton's and Schumacher's visions were idiosyncratic and unreal. Ours will be recognizable, contemporary reality against which an extraordinary, heroic figure arises. No more wackiness, no more cartoonishness. These are serious, deep, dramatic films about Batman. They're grounded and realistic and gritty, and have Batman fight terrorism. And hey, now that I think about it, weren't the politics of the 2000s a petri dish for fascism? I sure hope that Batman, but after 9/11, doesn't feature any problematic borderline fascist ideals." Batman Begins with Batman's beginning of falling down into a well full of bats. These bats are radioactive and give him all sorts of powers, like being able to fly and see by screaming really loud. That is Batman's origin. You can trust me when I say that because I'm the guy making the video. I'm trustworthy. Cut to years later. Rich dude Bruce Wayne is in a Bhutanese prison where everyone tries to beat him up. But he's so badass that he beats them up first. There's probably some commentary to be made about the fact that Bruce got himself sent to prison, specifically because it allows him to assault people he thinks deserve to have violence inflicted upon them. What did these guys do? I don't know. All I know is that Brucey here thinks that Bhutanese prisons aren't violent enough to inmates, because they don't just deserve years of imprisonment in shitty conditions. They also deserve to be harmed physically. it speaks to a kind of fucked up worldview. But admittedly, Bruce is young in this scene. Hopefully, he grows out of his sadistic desire to cause others pain in a way that is quote-unquote morally acceptable by the time he becomes Batman. The guards throw Bruce in solitary to stop him from beating up other people, and hey, wait a minute! Why is there a white guy in solitary with Bruce? That isn't what solitary means. Maybe the guards don't actually know what solitary is because English isn't their first language? Actually, now that I think about it, it's really accommodating that everyone in this prison speaks to Bruce in English. These convicted criminals who tried to beat up Bruce are really nice and understanding. The man introduces himself as Henry Ducard, a messenger working for Ra's al Ghul, a man greatly feared by the criminal underworld. Side note, I know that Ra's is technically more accurate to how it would be pronounced in Arabic, but DC has pronounced it Raish for so long in various adaptations that Ra's just sounds wrong to me. Wait, hold on. So Ra's isn't his real name in the comics, right? Like, that's just Arabic for the demon's head. It isn't a name, it's a title. Is it possible that in the continuities where it's Ra's al Ghul, that he's been mispronouncing his own title for centuries and no one has ever had the guts to tell him he was wrong? Ducard invites Bruce to join Raz's group, the League of Shadows, which, man, if I've ever heard the name of a good organization that isn't a shady bunch of murderers, the League of Shadows is the name. He invites Bruce to walk the path of a man who shares Bruce's hatred of evil and wishes to serve true justice. Bruce dismissively calls them vigilantes, which is different from him, the guy who goes around beating up criminals illegally. Anyway, Ducard says that a vigilante is a man lost in the scramble for his own gratification. A vigilante can be destroyed or locked up, but if you make yourself something more than just a man, if you devote yourself to an idea, and if they can't stop you, then you become something else entirely. A legend. Now that line must go so hard in the Dark Knight TikToks. Ducard's cool speech isn't fascist in and of itself, but I absolutely could see that speech being made by a fascist whose ideals are like the 14 words. Ducard gets Bruce released from prison, and Bruce climbs a mountain to train with some monks. He assumes that the first Asian man he sees is Ra's al Ghul, and later in the film it's revealed that this guy isn't the real Ra's al Ghul. Like, it's portrayed as the real Ra's tricking Bruce, but in hindsight, it kind of feels like Bruce was just racist and just assumed that the first Asian guy he ran into was in charge of the monks. It's also worth noting that, aside from his name, this film completely drops the Arabic aspects of Raz's character. Like, in the comics, he's kind of vaguely East Asian, vaguely Arabic, depending on the writer, but he definitely isn't Arabic in this movie. And on one hand, I'm not super fond of that in principle, but on the other, this was already a post-9/11 terrorism movie. It's not like we were lacking in spooky, evil Arab terrorist movie villains in 2005. On the other hand, Raz is more complex and interesting than your average 2000s terrorist villain. Like, my stance is that this is better than the character being really fucking racist, but also, obviously, it's possible to not race-lift a villain and still avoid them being a racial stereotype. Like, compare Shang-Chi to Iron Man 3, or Doctor Strange to Doctor Strange. I should make a video about Iron Man 3 sometime, because, like, on paper, the Mandarin is a really interesting villain idea, but in practice, he is so goddamn boring and does nothing with the interesting ideas they set up. Bruce tells Ken Watanabe's character, who isn't Ra's al Ghul... Actually, you know what? I'm gonna call this guy Fraser. That's... because I need to call him something. Bruce tells Fraser that he seeks a way to fight injustice and turn fear against those who prey on the fearful. Ducard translates Fraser telling him that to manipulate fear in others, he must first master his own. Flashback to Bruce being scared as a child! Papa Tommy pulls Bruce out of the well and decides against taking him to the hospital. And like, I'm not a doctor, but that sounds kinda dumb. I'll set the bone and take him in for an x-ray later. He got bit by a bunch of bats. How about instead of taking him to the opera, you got him a rabies shot? Like, I don't think Bruce probably went to the hospital after, well, you know. So I'm just imagining the realistic version of this movie where instead of becoming Batman, Bruce just fucking dies of rabies. Thomas tells Bruce that the bats attacked because they were afraid of him and that all creatures feel fear, even the scary ones. The Nolan movies sure do lay their themes on pretty thick. But I mean, at least they have themes that people thought about for more than 2 minutes, which is better than a lot of superhero movies. I mean, the film's writers only thought about the themes for like 30 minutes, but again, that's better than most superhero movies. Thomas also gives us the trilogy's arc words. Why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. The Waynes head into the city via the elevated train system that they built. Quote, Gotham's been very good to our family, but the city's been suffering. People less fortunate than us have been enduring very hard times. So we built a new, cheap public transportation system to unite the city. Hey! Thomas did the shit everyone wants Batman to do. He used his money to alleviate poverty, and not just by setting up a charity, by implementing structural changes via large-scale infrastructure improvements. Alfred even says later on that this almost bankrupted Wayne Enterprises, but he did it anyway because he wanted to save Gotham. This is based! I mean, capitalism is an abomination. It really shouldn't be up to the charitable whims of a mega-billionaire to decide personally if a major city has public transportation, but it's better than him not doing this. Like, the video is entitled, Is Batman a Capitalist? Because the answer to that is obvious. It's, Is Batman a Fascist? And Social Democrat who supports poverty relief programs Batman is preferable to Fascist Batman by a wide margin. I sure hope Batman learns from his father's lessons about how public transportation helps alleviate poverty and makes ensuring Gotham has a working train system a priority once he becomes Batman. Also, I'm obligated to note this because it's plot relevant. The train leads directly to Wayne Enterprises, not to the city's downtown where Wayne Enterprises is located. It literally leads to the building. All of the city's water lines also go to Wayne Enterprises for some reason. Still better design than Hyperloop. Haha, very funny. I love going for the easy jokes. The family goes to an opera which features a bunch of bats. Bruce gets scared, so the Waynes exit into the dark, spooky back alley instead of going through the front door for some fucking reason. A mugger shows up and orphanizes Bruce. As he dies, Thomas tells Bruce, don't be afraid. At the police station, police officer James Gordon, who is definitely not an old man wearing makeup to look younger, comforts Bruce, putting his father's coat over his shoulders. It would be funny if, like, the coat was just completely fucking covered in blood. Like, don't worry, son, I'm gonna comfort you. Smell that iron? That's the scent of your father's blood from when he got shot to death. Here, I've got some pearls for you. They're covered in your mother's blood. See, it makes them look like Pokeballs because it's like half white, half red. Now, go play with these Pokeballs, Bruce. After the funeral, Bruce blames himself for his parents' death because if he hadn't gotten scared, then his father wouldn't have exited the theater via the back door that leads to the very spooky murder alley. Like, it's all Bruce's fault that his father went into the spooky murder alley instead of out the fucking front door. There's a front door, man. Why are you like this, Tom? You're dead now, so I guess you aren't like it anymore. Alfred comforts Bruce, saying that it wasn't his fault. And yeah, it was Thomas's fault. And also, Joe Chill's fault. Mostly Joe Chill's fault. But also Thomas's fault. Back in the present, Ducard asks if Bruce still feels responsible. Bruce says his anger outweighs his guilt. Ducard trains Batman to be a ninja, telling him he must become more than just a man in the mind of his opponent. Do you mean he should become an Ubermensch, Henry? Is that what you mean? During his training, Bruce spots a caged murderer and asks what will happen to him. Ducard says justice, which, spoilers, means murder. He says that crime cannot be tolerated. Criminals thrive on the indulgence of society's understanding. Well, this Ducard guy is kind of reactionary. He even gives Bruce a speech about how will is everything. You must have the will to act. I sure hope Batman's will is triumphant. After a sword fight where Bruce falls through some ice into some cold water, Ducard tells him that once he had a wife, but she was taken from him. Wait. Say that again. Ducard says that there are those who must be fought, without hesitation, without pity. He says that Bruce needs to get vengeance. Bruce says that won't help him, leading to a flashback to when Bruce was in his 20s. He returns from Princeton and... Time! Pause! Princeton? Fuck no! Batman is a Yaley, goddammit! Bruce is back in town for the parole hearing of Joe Chill, the man who killed his parents. Bruce's childhood friend, Rachel Dawes, who now works for the DA's office, explains that Chill is being given an early parole in return for testifying against mob boss Carmine Falcone, or Falcone, they pronounce it in this film for some reason. Anyway, Bruce can't let the man who killed his parents go free and is planning to murder Joe Chill with a concealed pistol as he exits the courthouse. Wait, shouldn't there be a metal detector there? I mean, I've seen rural courthouses without metal detectors, but Gotham is a major metropolitan area. Chill's lawyer argues that the Depression hit working people like Joe Chill the hardest of all, and that his crime was motivated not by greed, but by desperation. So I guess in this continuity, there was a Great Depression in the 80s. That's rough. Chill testifies that not a day goes by that he doesn't wish he could take back what he did. He was desperate, but that doesn't change what he did. As Chill exits the courtroom, Bruce prepares to shoot him. One of Falcone's goons beats him to the punch. While Rachel is driving Bruce home, he says that maybe he should thank Falcone and his goons because his parents deserve justice. Rachel says that he isn't talking about justice, he's talking about revenge. They aren't the same thing. Justice is about harmony. Revenge is about making yourself feel better. That's why we have an impartial justice system. Bruce says that the system is broken. Rachel takes him down into the slums full of poverty and homelessness and says that things are worse than ever. Falcone floods the streets with crime and drugs, preying on the desperate, creating new Joe Chills every day. Falcone is destroying everything Bruce's parents stood for. Rachel says that as long as Falcone keeps the bad people rich and the good people scared, no one will touch him. Good people like the Waynes who stood against injustice, they're gone. What chance does Gotham have when good people do nothing? Bruce says that he isn't a good person and reveals that he was planning to kill Chill. Rachel says his father would be ashamed of him. Bruce chucks the gun into the river and confronts Falcone to show him he's not afraid of them. Falcone points out that there are 2 councilmen, a union official, multiple off-duty cops, and a judge, all corrupt, sitting in the restaurant, and brags that he could kill Bruce in front of them without any consequence. That's a power you can't buy. That's the power of fear. Bruce says he isn't afraid of Falcone, and Falcone threatens to kill Alfred or Rachel. He tells Bruce that he's never tasted desperation and warns him that the criminal underworld is something he'll never understand. And you always fear what you don't understand. Bruce decides to travel the world studying crime. In the present, Ducard asks him when he started to pity criminals. Bruce says the first time he stole so he wouldn't starve. We see a flashback of him sharing food with a starving child and getting arrested for robbing Wayne Enterprises. Bruce says he lost many assumptions about the nature of right and wrong. But he never became one of them. He never became a criminal. Yeah, you did! You did become a criminal, Bruce! Hell, all that Batmaning you do later in the movie, that's super illegal! Batman is a criminal! But Bruce doesn't think of himself as a criminal, and that's an aspect of his character that, admittedly, never quite goes away in this trilogy. The way Bruce, like so many people, sees it is criminals are the other. They're not criminals because they commit crimes. They commit crimes because they are criminals. They commit crimes because they are different from Bruce, because crime is in their nature. That's bullshit, but it's a thing that a lot of people think. Ducard says that criminals aren't complicated. He says that Bruce fears his own power, his anger, the drive to do great or terrible things. Then Bruce smokes that bag kush that makes you see bats. Ducard monologues about the power of fear and how that power can be Bruce's if he becomes one with the darkness. God, take a shot every time someone mentions the word fear in this movie. After Bruce completes the bag kush that makes you see bats trowel, Fraser says that he's ready to become a member of the League of Shadows. But first, he must demonstrate his commitment to justice by murdering that prisoner guy from earlier. Bruce says he isn't an executioner. Ducard says, your compassion is a weakness your enemies will not share. Bruce says, that's why it's important. It separates us from them. And this is a very interesting way to phrase it. Bruce doesn't like killing, not because he thinks of his enemies as people, not because of some belief in redemption or rehabilitation, not because he believed in the arguments at the start of the film that Chill's crimes were motivated by desperation. He opposes killing because killing is what the other does. It's what the people who aren't human do, and he's better than them. Like, this film on the surface level has a lot to say about the causes of crime, about the integrity of the justice system and the humanity of criminals, but deep down, there's this reactionary undercurrent in how these issues are framed. And it's worth noting that, aside from the phenomenal boat scene in The Dark Knight, these ideas essentially disappear from the story after this point. Is crime caused by poverty? Yes. Can social programs save a city? Sure. But ultimately, this isn't a movie about Batman saving Gotham, through fighting the roots of poverty. It's a movie about him becoming the nightmare of the superstitious and cowardly lot. The Dark Knight trilogy is a series of movies that begins by showing that the solution to crime is something other than increased law enforcement presence, and then, for 2.5 movies, shows that the solution is like a cop, but trained by ninjas with a bunch of cool gadgets. And this culminates in the ending of Rises, which, oh boy, we'll get to that later. Anyway, Bruce says that the prisoner should be tried. Ducard mocks this, saying that he'd be tried by corrupt bureaucrats, and that criminals mock society's laws. Unlike, the secret murder assassins who go around murdering people. They don't mock society's laws at all when they murder people. Fraser explains that Bruce cannot lead the other ninjas unless he is prepared to do what is necessary to defeat evil. Then, he reveals that the League of Shadows plans to destroy Gotham because the city has become a breeding ground for suffering and injustice. It is beyond saving and must be allowed to die. Bruce is horrified, rightly so. Fraser, maybe you should have made sure Bruce was cool with completely destroying his hometown and murdering millions of people before you spent all the time making him a badass ninja capable of fucking up your plan. Just saying. Bruce starts a fire that blows up the monastery, killing a bunch of people, including Fraser. But he does go out of his way to save Ducard from falling off a cliff. Bruce's stance on killing is confusing in this trilogy. He completely opposes it, except for all the times he kills people. Like, he considers stage hazards to be morally neutral. I didn't kill Fraser, the fire did. You're the one who started the fire, Bruce, okay? You killed him. So, what happened to that prisoner guy who Bruce was opposed to killing? Did he die in the fire? I mean, he was handcuffed in a burning building, surrounded by evil ninjas, and we don't see him afterwards. I think he died. But, don't worry, it wasn't Batman who killed him. It was the fire that Batman started. Bruce heads back to Gotham, planning to become a superhero. He says that he wants to show the people that their city doesn't belong to the criminals and the corrupt. He says the people need something dramatic to shake them out of apathy. As a man, he can be ignored, destroyed, but as a symbol, he can be incorruptible and everlasting. Bruce heads to Wayne Enterprises and discovers that, now that the company is going public, CEO William Earl has begun manufacturing weapons, even though Thomas Wayne didn't want them to. Earl tells Bruce that he can't stop this because, oh no, capitalism is a big machine with too many turning wheels. Bruce doesn't actually seem to care much, though. He fires Earl later in the movie for being a dick, but there isn't a scene where he goes all Iron Man and says, "We aren't making weapons ever again!" Bruce heads down to the Applied Sciences Division, where scientist and friend of his father, Lucius Fox, keeps all of his failed military prototypes, like body armor and tanks designed to be used in the Middle East. Making guns? No. That's evil. Thomas Wayne would have never allowed that. He would have made sure the Wayne Enterprises stuck to normal, peaceful creations like armored cars with mounted machine guns to be sold to the U.S. military. What? Lucius lets Bruce take all this stuff for superheroing on the justification that because Bruce owns a lot of stock in Wayne Enterprises, he already owns it, and yeah, that's embezzlement. That is not legal. That's a crime. I'm not a lawyer, but I found a write-up by a lawyer about why this is super illegal. But it's cool when the main characters do it. I fight crime and corruption through embezzlement, Batman thinks. Oh, by the way, the body armor Lucius gives Bruce is already black, but it isn't black enough, so he spray paints it to make it super double extra black. Batman is really just an edgy goth kid, isn't he? Bruce sets up a secret base below his mansion and the caves that his family used to use as part of the Underground Railroad, and that's neat. I like how there's a common theme in this movie, that Bruce Wayne is the least based member of the Wayne family. His family has been saving people for generations, and then there's fucking Bruce who went off to train to be a ninja and accidentally learned, oh shit, these ninja assassins who are training me want to murder people. Who could have seen that coming? Hope they don't destroy Gotham. There are a bunch of bats down in the Underground Railroad caves, and Bruce decides to use a bat as his logo because bats frighten me. It's time my enemies shared my dread. Meanwhile, psychologist Jonathan Crane testifies the mob hitman Victor Zsasz should be let out of prison because he's insane. Rachel confronts him about this, but the DA wants her to drop it because Falcone runs this town. I'd like to note that Crane lying and saying that a murderer is insane to let him get away with murder is probably the most ridiculous and unrealistic part of this movie. Like, this is such a movie trope. It's a thing that people think happens, and it just doesn't. This doesn't happen in real life. Only 1% of trials have insanity pleas, and only 1 in 4 of those are successful. And obviously, you don't actually go free if you plead insanity. The court doesn't just let you do whatever you want if you say, I killed them because I am physically incapable of understanding the murder is wrong. You get chucked in a psychiatric hospital, potentially for the rest of your life. Like, this isn't a thing that exists. This isn't a loophole. Because why would they create a loophole? There is a certain irony in this film, which is Batman, but like gritty and realistic, casually including nonsensical, unrealistic tropes promoted by Hollywood and law enforcement. Like, I bet you could add a scene where Batman rants about the necessity of broken windows policing into this movie and have it be indistinguishable from the actual script. This is a tangent, but do you know what actually does happen in real life? The opposite. There is a long history of prosecutors paying psychologists to lie to juries and claim the people that they've never met are dangerous, irrepentant sociopaths who need to be immediately killed because they're just too dangerous to be left alive. There's a good Behind the Bastards two-parter from a few months ago about this. Anyway, just in general, if someone tells you, dang, the real problem with America is that the police respect the civil liberties of people accused of crimes just too much, they're full of shit. We live in a country where police have nearly unlimited power and are allowed to do pretty much anything short of physically torturing someone to put them behind bars. Anyway, Crane meets with Falcone and says he can't keep getting criminals out of jail because Rachel is sniffing around. He also mentions that his employer is coming to Gotham soon and will be upset if he finds out Falcone endangered their operation to get some thugs out of jail. Falcone is actually terrified of Crane's boss. Falcone decides to deal with Rachel by killing her. Meanwhile, Jim Gordon watches his corrupt partner, Arnold Flass, take a bribe. Gordon doesn't take any money, but insists he isn't a rat, because there's no one to rat to anyway. Bruce, dressed as Man, breaks into Gordon's office for information on how to take down Falcone. Gordon says he's just one man, but Man says, now we're two. So, like, the story is that because Gordon was friendly after Bruce's parents died, Bruce tracks him down years later and partners with him because he knows Gordon's a good cop. But, like, you can be a corrupt cop and still be nice from time to time. People aren't one-dimensional good and evil in real life. Piece-of-shit cops are fully capable of being friendly, and friendly people are fully capable of being evil. After completing his costume and upgrading from Man to Batman, Bruce stops a drug shipment and ties Falcone to a spotlight so Gordon can arrest him. He also stops Falcone's goons from assassinating Rachel and gives her evidence she can use as leverage against a corrupt judge. Police Commissioner Loeb doesn't like vigilantism and orders the cops to arrest Batman. Gordon points out that he got them Falcone, but Loeb says that no one's going to take the law into their own hands in his city. Meanwhile, Earl learns that someone stole the new prototype microwave weapon that Wayne Enterprises developed. That sounds brutal, but don't worry, it isn't designed to be used on humans. It's designed to be used in desert warfare to vaporize water supplies to force enemy combatants to die of dehydration. Jesus Christ, this thing would be fucked up if it existed in real life. The US Army would absolutely use it on civilian populations. Also, how is it strong enough to instantly turn liquid water into steam, but not strong enough to have literally any negative effect on humans? Aren't humans mostly water? This weapon is confusing and also a war crime. Bruce decides to hide the fact that he's Batman by publicly pretending to be a dipshit douchebag playboy. He runs into Rachel while he's pretending to be an asshole and insists that there's more to him inside. Rachel tells him that it isn't who you are underneath, it's what you do that defines you. Crane meets with Falcone, who demands he be let in on Crane's big evil plan. Crane reveals he's actually a crazy guy who calls himself the Scarecrow, then sprays Falcone with that bad kush that makes you see bats, which drives Falcone insane. Small thing I forgot to mention earlier, when Batman caught Falcone, it was mentioned that half the drugs at the docks were being sent to Crane for his evil plan. Batman interrogates Flash to find out where they were sent, and by interrogate, I mean hangs him from a rope and threatens to drop him if he doesn't confess, and that's torture, Batman. That's torture. Hopefully Batman torturing people for information doesn't become a theme in this trilogy. Anyway, Flash says that Crane's bad kush that makes people see bats is being sent to the Narrows, this rundown poor people section of the city. Batman goes to investigate right as Scarecrow is burning the place to destroy evidence. Unfortunately, Scarecrow sprays Batman with the bad kush that... Okay, I get it. The joke has run its course. He sprays Batman with fear toxin, then sets him on fire. Batman makes it back to Wayne Manor, but almost dies and is knocked out for 2 days. Lucius saves him by synthesizing an antidote. Rachel confronts Crane about Falcone going insane. She threatens to do a blood test, so Scarecrow shrugs and decides to show her his evil scheme, pouring fear toxin into the water supply. He sprays Rachel with a lethal amount of fear toxin. Batman shows up to save her, so Scarecrow calls the cops on him. Batman beats up Scarecrow and asks who he's working for. Scarecrow says, Ra's al Ghul. But he's dead. I swallowed the fact that there was a fake Raz, but Batman doesn't know that. Batman tells Gordon about Scarecrow's plan, then fights through the SWAT team by summoning all of the bats. Just all of the fucking bats. So many fucking bats. Batman drives away, wrecking multiple cop cars in the process. Based. Batman cures Rachel, then tells her to give one antidote to Gordon and use the other for mass production. It's weird that there are 2 different Batman movies where the love interest gets attacked, so Batman saves her and takes her back to the Batcave and tells her how to stop the bad guy's poisoning scheme, then drugs her to send her home. That's so specific, but it happens in this one and in the first Batman movie by Tim Burton. Alfred confronts Bruce about the wrecked cop cars, saying it's a miracle no one was killed, and that Bruce is getting lost in being Batman. He says this can't just be for proving himself and can't be personal, because if it is, Batman's just a vigilante. I think he's a vigilante regardless, Alfred, given all the vigilantism he does. Bruce orders Alfred to take Rachel home, leading to a comedy bit where some servants see Alfred dragging an unconscious woman into a car and driving away with her and just shrug it off. Fun fact, these servants used to work in Palm Beach, but got a job in Gotham after their former employer got arrested. Can you tell what other big video I've been working on from that joke? It's the night of Bruce's birthday, and Alfred invited a bunch of rich people while Bruce was in a coma, which is a really rude thing to do. But anyway, Bruce has to go to the party to avoid ruining his father's name and making his butler sad. Meanwhile, forensics guys test the water and tell Gordon that it's been full of fear toxin for weeks, but no one has been affected because fear toxin is only absorbed through the lungs. So, what? Has no one boiled water in the last month? Do they not drink tea or eat pasta in Gotham? Bruce discusses things with Lucius, who realizes that the bad guys are planning to use the microwave weapon to turn all the water into steam to make everyone breathe in the fear toxin. A random party guest goes up to Bruce and says that there's a man at the party he must meet named Ra's al Ghul. Bruce, again, turns to a random East Asian guy. Ra's al Ghul isn't even an Asian name. I think Batman's just racist in this movie. No, it turns out that Ra's is actually Ducard, who had Fraser pretend to be the real Ra's because this movie needed a plot twist. I don't actually know how this benefits Ra's, especially because he stops doing it halfway through the movie. Bruce makes a scene and insults all the rich people, ruining his father's legacy in the process, to get them to leave so they won't be hurt by Ra's. Ra's explains that he's going to release the fear toxin so Gotham will tear itself apart through fear. Bruce says he's going to destroy millions of lives, and Ra's says only a cynical man would call what these people have lives. Crime, despair, this is not how man was supposed to live. He claims that the League has been a check against human corruption for thousands of years and was responsible for the sacking of Rome, the burning of London, and the Black Plague. No, they weren't. No, they were not. They were not responsible for the Black Plague, okay? They did not invent germ theory centuries in advance, then keep it secret so they could use it to kill people. Hot take, I think that the previous head of the League of Shadows made up a bunch of bullshit to make his organization sound more important, and Ra's just believes it because he's an idiot. Ra's says that every time a civilization reaches the pinnacle of its decadence, they return to restore the balance. Bruce says that Gotham isn't beyond saving, that he needs more time because there are still good people here. Ra's says that no one can save Gotham. When the forest grows too wild, a purging fire is inevitable and natural. Tomorrow the world will watch in horror as its greatest city destroys itself. The movement back to harmony will be unstoppable this time. He reveals that actually he created the Depression as part of a scheme to destroy Gotham. Unfortunately, this depression led Joe Chill to kill Bruce's parents, which galvanized the city into saving itself, except not really because it still sucks. So, quick question. What does Ra's actually want? Is his problem poverty and crime? Because he caused that. He caused the poverty and crime. Is it decadence? That Gotham is too rich and corrupt, so it must be destroyed? Is it capitalism? Because the Black Death predated capitalism by centuries, and the Black Death sure as hell didn't stop the decadence of medieval monarchies. Is that really all this is? Hatred of decadence, not because of the poverty it brings, but in a this is the rot at the heart of society, you live in too much comfort kind of way? Because that's dumb. Because his plan centers on killing all the poor people who live in the slums. Like, the Great Depression you caused didn't hurt the rich, decadent douchebags. It hurt poor people like Joe Chill. Okay, well, it did hurt the Waynes via Joe Chill, but you didn't plan for that. That was just a side benefit. Roz doesn't have a super clear ideology other than just wanting to destroy things, and that could work. You could write him as being so far up his own ass that he doesn't realize his contradictions, but it kind of feels like the film thinks Roz has something to say, and he doesn't. Also, the reason The Dark Knight works the best out of the movies in this trilogy is because, well, its villains, much like the villains of Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, have dumb as hell contradictory beliefs that don't make sense. In The Dark Knight, they're explained clearly enough that the audience can understand that the writers intended for them to be dumb as hell and contradictory. You can understand that Two-Face is full of shit and crazy, but you don't get the sense that Roz or Bane is supposed to be full of shit. You get the sense that the writers think they, at least vaguely, have a point to make, but I can't tell what the fucking point is! Bruce fights Roz and his ninjas. They burn his mansion down, leaving Bruce pinned under a wooden beam. Alfred saves him. Bruce breaks down, saying that he failed, but Alfred asks him, "Why do we fall, sir? So we can learn to pick ourselves up." I can't do a British accent. Roz's goons blast open Arkham Asylum, saying free all of the scary, dangerous, mentally ill people. Police decide to send everyone into the Narrows. All of the cops. They send all of the cops into one small location to deal with a problem, then raise the bridges so no one else can get in or out. What a weird thing to do that ends up playing right into Roz's hands. We see a man complain about harassment as Flash arrests him, so Flash threatens to murder him. I think that beyond the cops taking bribes from the mob thing, there is probably a really big police brutality problem in Gotham, and that doesn't really ever get addressed in these films. Roz activates the microwave, filling the Narrows with fear toxin gas and causing people to panic. Flash almost shoots 2 children before being stopped by Gordon. Like I said, Gotham cops are the fucking worst. Also, Scarecrow shows up on horseback and is quickly tased by Rachel. Batman arrives and gives the Batmobile to Gordon, telling him to blow up the monorail tracks before the League can use the monorail to bring the microwave to Wayne Tower, which, as a reminder, is where all the water lines are. He explains that if the microwave reaches the tower, it will cause a chain reaction and destroy all of Gotham instead of just the poor parts, which have already been destroyed. Wait a minute. Why didn't Batman blow up the monorail himself? Like, he had to drive into Gotham from Wayne Manor, which is inland, to the Narrows, which is an island. He passed by Wayne Tower. Why did he drive past it to give the car keys to Gordon so Gordon can drive back into the city to blow up the monorail? Oh shit, hold on. Oh god, I just realized I have not made a single Simpsons reference in this entire video. I apologize. That was very unprofessional. Batman saves Rachel from Zaz. Remember him? No? That's fine. Rachel asks him to tell her his name, and he says, "It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me." Oh shit, it's like the thing that Rachel said to him earlier. Remember that? She said that, and now he's saying that. God, this movie is so deep. Batman confronts Roz. They fight on the train. The fight doesn't actually matter, though, because Gordon blows up the train tracks. Batman says, "Well, my work is done here." Roz points out that he didn't do anything, and Batman gets beamed away by Scotty. As the train is about to crash, Roz asks, "Have you finally learned to do what is necessary?" Batman says, "I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you." Save him from what, Bruce? Save him from what? From the train crash you caused? That's what you don't have to save him from? This is just the fucking fire defense again. "Your Honor, I didn't kill him. The bullets did. I am innocent. He just died of a random gunshot after I shot him in the head with this gun." Anyway, Gotham has been saved, except for the Narrows. The Narrows are fucked. Like, Lucius could probably develop an antidote, but Rachel almost died the moment she ingested a high amount of fear toxin. Maybe the people inside are fine, but anyone who was outside near those manholes when they exploded is dead now. And beyond that, one dose of fear toxin was enough to completely destroy Falcone's mind forever. The Narrows is fucked. And that isn't me saying that. At the end of this movie, Gordon tells Batman that the Narrows are lost. Look, It's Batman's first movie, okay? He's allowed to make a few mistakes. The important thing is that most of the city is fine. It's just the poor neighborhoods that got completely destroyed and will never be mentioned again in the sequels. Look, admittedly, the Twin Towers thing was pretty bad, but the rest of New York is fine, so that's at least worth a B-. I'm Batman. Bruce and Rachel have their big romantic kiss, but then Rachel pulls away, saying she can't date Bruce because he's Batman. The man she loves never came back. Maybe when Gotham no longer needs Batman, she'll see him again. The film ends with Gordon setting up a bat signal to contact Batman and warning about the escalation Batman will bring, like sequel Hook the Clown. So, that was Batman Begins. I'll play Fascist Bingo at the end, but right now, how are we feeling about Bale's Batman vis-a-vis politics? I think he's fine. There is some attempt at commentary in this film about poverty and its connection to crime, but that doesn't really go anywhere and is overshadowed by the plot line about a shadowy organization that wants to destroy Gotham for reasons that I'm still not super clear about. This film has Batman fight against cops, but not because of any analysis of the police's role in society. He fights cops not because of any flaws with law enforcement as an institution, but rather because they are corrupt and take bribes from mobsters. Maybe you could spin this as commentary about cops being especially vulnerable to corruption, but that's a stretch, I think. So much of this film is dedicated to overwritten navel-gazing about the nature of fear and overcoming fear and weaponizing fear and the fear of the fear of the fear of the fear of the fear. Fear. And despite all that rambling about fear, this film doesn't really have anything deep to say about it. The cops are corrupt because they're greedy, not because they're afraid to stand up against evil. And this ending, where fear drives people to violence, it isn't even because of fear, it's because they're having a bad trip. Wow, Scarecrow, you prove that people hallucinate when given hallucinogenics. Shocking! Also, the best part of this film, politically speaking, is Thomas Wayne being hella awesome, and his son doesn't measure up or follow in his example, which is unfortunate. Still, I don't hate this Batman. His stances on killing are muddled, but still, I like that despite being this brooding, violent vigilante, this man who hates criminals enough to put on a mask and beat people up late at night, Bruce still says, no, this is wrong, I don't want to kill people because they don't deserve to die. There's something about this version of Batman that appeals to me on a very deep level. The central thesis of this trilogy, despite how messy these films are, is that people are good. And no Batman film shows this theme better than The Dark Knight. This is the big one. This is the movie everyone loves. This is the superhero movie. The masterpiece that is ranked number 3 out of all films ever on IMDb, just below The Godfather, being out to cavalcade of incredible works of art. The Dark Knight is widely considered to be the best of Nolan's trilogy, and I don't disagree. Even though its politics are very, very whack, it is a well-made film. But yeah, this is the most post-9/11-ass movie ever made. This is a movie that could have only been made during the height of the War on Terror. Nolan claimed in interviews that this wasn't meant to be that blatant, saying in an interview with Variety, "We try not to be particularly conscious of what we're doing. We try to write the story within this world and these characters, and in the process try to do something that affects us and the world we live in." When we look back at the finished product, we see various parallels and relevancies, but we try and just let that be a product of writing, what moves us, what frightens and excites us. We trust that we'll have some reality or some relevance, but it would violate the terms of storytelling and the terms of the genre if you're too conscious of trying to make particular political points. I don't think that's what you're selling the audience. I don't think that's what the ride is. I think ultimately, if the film has relevance, it's actually going to be more interesting to an audience, but we like it to be subtext. But this movie goes a hell of a lot more than just subtext. This is a movie about Batman fighting terrorism. The other thing this movie is about is anarchy, but the concept of anarchy, as understood by a film bro who has never opened a philosophy textbook. This isn't like a deconstruction of the writings of Emma Goldberg or Peter Kropotkin. This isn't about anarchism, the political philosophy. It's about those dang people who just love chaos for the sake of chaos, which is definitely a real political ideology that people have. This hostility towards anarchism is manifested by the film's villain, the Joker, played impeccably by Heath Ledger. Quote Nolan about the character: "We talked about creating a sheer force of pure anarchy, somebody that you could believe as a human being, but someone who really represents an absolute quality of somebody who wants to just tear down the world around him." That fear of anarchy is really what sort of drove the creation of the character, and so I think it was sort of inherent in it that it would be very different than what had been done before. There is a certain irony, given the last movie, in Nolan having this deep-seated fear of anarchy and also not really understanding anarchy. He also mentioned Alan Moore's influence on Ledger's Joker in that Variety article, specifically in how The Killing Joke apparently portrayed the Joker as an anarchist. And I've got some news about Moore's political beliefs, Chris. Maybe you should look him up. Like the fact that Nolan imagines anarchism not as a real ideology centered on opposition to capitalism and authority, with 2 centuries of political debate and writings on the topic, but rather as chaos and evil that people support because they're evil and love chaos, speaks to some issues in how Nolan conceptualizes the real world, issues that are made apparent throughout the movie. Anyway, Dark Knight time. Oh look, someone 9/11'd a Batman logo into that building. Wait a minute, this could have been one of the film's villains, because they hate Batman, which means someone else did this. Who do we know who flies around in a bat-shaped plane, which is perfect for 9/11ing bat-shaped holes into buildings? If you said Batman, you're wrong, because he doesn't actually have a plane in this continuity. He has a weird helicopter, hover car thing. Unless... My god, Michael Keaton's Batman was transported to this universe by Doctor Strange's magic and then immediately did a 9/11! I should probably watch the actual movie instead of just harping on the poster design. The film begins with this fucker, the Joker, orchestrating a bank robbery while wearing a clown mask, which covers up the fact that he is wearing clown makeup underneath. Make this a meme format, like, use it when someone is pretending to be dumb, but is actually dumb underneath. The bank robbers Joker hired to assist him kill each other one by one to ensure they get a bigger share of the loot, ending with the Joker being the only robber left alive. At the end of the heist, the mobster bank manager says that criminals in Gotham used to believe in honor and respect. He asks what the Joker believes in, and the Joker tells him, "I believe whatever doesn't kill you simply makes you stranger." This opening scene is excellent, and I think a part of it that people gloss over when praising it is how important it is for establishing the film's themes. The Joker doesn't trust people to be good. His plan revolves around these bank robbers being selfish, and they prove him right, killing each other for money. This is how the Joker sees the world. The Joker thinks that everyone is like him deep down once you peel off the mask of civility. And I want to make something clear as we delve into this movie. The Joker is full of shit. Not just out of universe, but in universe, he is wrong. That is what the film is about. The film cuts to late at night. A criminal decides against doing crime after seeing the bat signal because he's afraid of Batman. A news station debates if Batman is a crusader or a menace, while the mayor says that they're planning to arrest Batman. Cut to Scarecrow drug dealing that bad kush that makes you see bats. Batman shows up and, hold on, when did Batman learn double team? Aw shit, Ninja Batman has a gun! JK, that isn't Batman. The real Batman shows up and beats up Scarecrow. The Batmans with guns are copycats. Batman ties up the copycats and tells them to stop crime fighting. One copycat asks what the difference is between him and Batman Batman says, "I'm not wearing hockey pads." Jesus, take a fucking lozenge, Bruce. You sound like you just smoked 10 packs of cigarettes and drink a milkshake full of broken glass. Batman meets with Gordon at the bank where they talk about the Joker and their work to stop the mob. Batman dismisses Joker as not being a threat because he's just one man. Come on, Bruce, didn't they teach you about the law of conservation of ninjutsu when you were training in the mountains? This is basic ninja shit. Gordon brings up the new district attorney, Harvey Dent, and Batman asks, "Do you trust him?" Pete Holmes ruined this movie for so many people. Back at the Bat basement, Bruce tells Alfred that he wanted to inspire people, but the hockey pad boys weren't what he had in mind. This is another one of the movie's themes, that Batman is inspiring people for better or for worse. He's broken the factory seal of political civility, and now Gotham is changing. It's going from the status quo, the horrible status quo of corrupt cops and rich mobsters, to something Chris Nolan fears more than anything: anarchy. Anyway, meet new district attorney Harvey Dent. Can we trust him? He's dating Rachel, who has regenerated into her 11th incarnation after absorbing a bunch of radiation to save Alfred. Remember that? It happened in a tie-in comic. Harvey's late for court because he's such a cool cowboy cop prosecutor who doesn't play by the rules, and this is really rude and unprofessional and will make him lose a lot of cases in real life. Harvey flips a coin to decide if he or Rachel leads the case, except we later find out that the coin is one of those fake coins with the same face, so actually, he's just gaslighting his girlfriend. Come to think about it, isn't it, really improper for the district attorney to date one of his employees? Harvey is prosecuting Sal Maroni, who took over after Falcone went to Arkham. The goon he's prosecuting pulls a gun which jams. Harvey rips away the gun, punches the goon out, then quips about how the gun was made in China, saying, "If you want to kill a public servant, buy American!" What a random, mildly racist thing to say in this scene that is meant to set up how cool Harvey is, because, he doesn't prosecute people by being a good lawyer. He punches them out because he's so macho. Also, again, don't courthouses have metal detectors? The last movie had an assassination in a courthouse. Why didn't they install metal detectors after Joe Chill got shot? What, is Gotham some sort of poorly run hellhole? Actually, I take it back. That fits with how the city is generally portrayed. Rachel's really chill about her boyfriend almost getting shot to death, by the way. She says that the fact that they're trying to kill him means that they're getting to the mob. Rachel, stop smiling! He almost died. Your boss in the last movie got shot to death in a scene I skipped for pacing reasons. Stop being so blasé about your boyfriend almost dying. Gordon goes to Harvey to ask for his help in securing warrants to raid a bunch of mob banks. Harvey asks to meet Batman, but Gordon says, "Well, official policy is to arrest the Batman. Don't ask about our bat signal that we put up to contact Batman. I don't know what you're talking about." Harvey says he doesn't like Gordon's major crimes unit because he investigated a bunch of them when he worked for Internal Affairs. Gordon says that if he didn't work for corrupt cops, he wouldn't have any coworkers. And hey, Jim, that's kind of the problem, isn't it? Hopefully there aren't any negative consequences that come from this. Harvey says that he'll get the warrants, but wants Gordon's trust. Gordon says that Harvey is Gotham's White Knight. What a weird thing to say. Meanwhile, Bruce meets with a Chinese businessman named Lau. Lucius warns that Lau is evil and involved with organized crime, but Bruce already knew that. He was only meeting with Lau to spy on him because he knows that Lau works for the mob. Bruce interrupts Harvey and Rachel's date so he can learn more about Harvey, and for no other jealousy-related reason. This leads to a bunch of very on-the-nose dialogue that does not sound like anything that any human being has ever said in a casual conversation. Bruce's ballerina date brings up how horrible it is that Gotham idolizes a mass vigilante instead of real heroes like elected officials like Harvey Dent. Harvey says that Gotham is proud of an ordinary citizen standing up for what's right, that Gotham appointed Batman when they stood by and let scum take over the city. Bruce's date says that they live in a democracy. Harvey is one of those 40-year-old white dudes who thinks about the Roman Empire every 5 seconds and says that, the Romans used to get rid of democracy and appoint a dictator to rule over them in times of crisis. So, I know that this is a movie about if Batman is a fascist, but, Harvey Dent has some pretty reactionary thoughts on democracy. Rachel points out that the last time the Roman Republic appointed a dictator, he, took over and ruled with an iron fist until he got stabbed a bunch. Harvey's takeaway from this is, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I don't think that's the takeaway from the story of Julius Caesar, Harv. I think the takeaway is that dictatorships are bad. Harvey says that Batman must want to retire and have someone take over his mantle. Someone like him. How do you know that? How do you know that, Harvey? You're right, Bruce wants to retire and be with Rachel, but how do you know that? Bruce's date suggests that Harvey might be Batman, which is so dumb because his chin looks like a butt. Bruce is impressed by Harvey's reactionary drivel and decides to hold a campaign fundraiser for him. Meanwhile, the cops tried to raid the mob banks, but all of their money has been moved by Lau, who is hiding it at a secret location. The Joker interrupts the meeting, offering a proposition to the mobsters. They're scared of Batman because Batman is fucking up the crimes, so he suggests we kill the Batman. In return, he wants half of their money. The mobsters think Joker's full of shit, and one of them, Gamble, puts a bounty on his head. A few scenes later, Joker murders Gamble after asking him, "Well, I know how I got these scars." He tells a story about his abusive father carving his face, leaving him with a permanent smile. Put a pin in that. Dent summons Batman and Gordon using the bat signal and informs them that Lau skipped town to avoid being arrested. And unfortunately, the dastardly Chinese government won't extradite this obviously evil criminal to the United States. Man, aren't the Chinese just awful? This film has as a weird and consistent undertone. Gordon and Dent argue about whose office full of corrupt people tipped Lau off. Batman offers to bring Lau back and then travels to Hong Kong, beats up a bunch of cops, bombs part of a skyscraper, and kidnaps a man to drag him back to the US. Yay! Crime fighting. This is a good thing that Batman did because he is the hero and doesn't let pesky things like the law or national borders interfere with what he wants to do because he's the good guy. Oh, by the way, while hunting Lau, Batman uses some new tech Lucius built for him that allows him to turn a cell phone into a sonar device and get a scan of an entire skyscraper. This is a Chekhov's gun for some really sketchy stuff later on. Lau turns on the mobsters in return for immunity. Gordon and Dent arrest all of them under RICO. And when I say all of them, I mean 549 different people all get arrested and are given one trial? This is a travesty. This is cartoonish butchery of justice. This is wrong. We see an army of cops going in and grabbing people. They definitely grabbed innocent people who just happened to be nearby criminals, and now they're being charged with the same fucking crimes without proper legal representation, and apparently this is fine. I mean, they're bad guys within the context of the film, so it's okay that they don't get a fair trial, but do you see why that's a dangerous idea? The idea that civil liberties should be suspended for the people the government says are evil is atrocious, because the government will inevitably use this rationale to take rights away from anyone by simply saying they are evil. Either everyone has rights, or literally no one has rights. Those are the only options for a system of governance, and this film chooses the latter. Like, Jesus, this isn't a fair trial. The mayor flat out says that there will be constant appeals from the hundreds of people given life sentences for crimes they didn't commit without having their own lawyer, and yeah, I sure fucking hope there are appeals. People who get sentenced without fair trials, appealing those unfair trials isn't bad people gaming the system, it's the basic foundation of due process. But it's fine, Harvey says. They got the bad people off the streets. The mayor warns that everyone's going to be gunning for Harvey now. Politicians, journalists, cops, anyone whose wallet's about to get a little lighter. Because as we all know, the only reason a journalist would write something negative about the government abandoning due process is because those evil journalists are secretly being paid by the mobsters. Man, aren't journalists the enemy? Man, wouldn't this country be better if we didn't have a fair press? The mayor warns that if they find anything on Harvey, the criminals will get back on the streets and... yes? Like, oh no, if the press finds out that Harvey got convictions by forging evidence, those convictions won't apply anymore. How terrible! Why do people keep trying to undermine the authoritarian powers of our good friend Harvey Dent, who we can all trust because he's the White Knight? The fact that this heroic character constantly fantasizes about being a dictator isn't a bad sign at all. And I mean, Harvey does go off the deep end later in the movie, but it isn't portrayed as he was already evil for the RICO stuff and Two-Face is just him still being evil. It's portrayed as he was a great hero who did good things and then lost his mind after the kidnapping. Like, this is Harvey Dent being the heroic white knight that Gotham needs, and that hero is authoritarian as hell. The mobsters hire the Joker, who murders Brian Hockey Pads from the beginning and hangs his corpse from the flagpole at City Hall. The Joker sends a tape into the news showing him torturing and murdering Hockey Pads. As he does, Hockey Pads says that he dresses like Batman because Batman is a symbol that they don't have to be afraid of scum like the Joker. The Joker turns the camera around saying, Batman has made Gotham crazy. If they want order in Gotham, Batman has to go. He gives his ultimatum. Every day Batman doesn't turn himself in, people will die. That night, the Joker assassinates Police Commissioner Loeb and the judge from that big mockery of justice. His third target is Harvey Dent, who Bruce is holding a campaign party for that night. Bruce gives a speech, initially mocking Harvey for his dumbass campaign slogan, I believe in Harvey Dent. He says that, now that he's seen Harvey make the city safer, he actually does believe in Harvey Dent. He toasts to the face of Gotham's bright future, and get it, it's a joke about the fact that his face gets all quispy later. Side note, this scene is a reference to The Godfather, or more accurately, it's a reference to The Long Halloween, one of the comic miniseries that loosely inspired this movie, which itself frequently homaged The Godfather. The Long Halloween begins with a recreation of The Godfather's I Believe in America scene, except it's Bruce saying, I believe in Gotham City. The words "I believe in" are repeated throughout the series. For example, Batman saying, "I believe in Jim Gordon," or him being hesitant to think Harvey's a murderer because he believes in Harvey Dent. Ultimately, the book ends with 3 people saying what they believe in. Gordon decides to keep fighting because he believes in Gotham. Batman vows that someday he will rid Gotham of evil, saying, "I believe in Batman." And also, a third character says, "I believe in someone," but that's a big spoiler. Anyway, this line has a completely different meaning in this film, but it still works with Bruce's arc. After the speech, Bruce and Rachel talk on the balcony. He brings up their conversation from the end of the last movie, where she said Gotham would one day not need Batman. She says that he can't ask her to wait for that, but Bruce says that day has come. Harvey is a hero who locked up half the city's criminals without wearing a mask. But he was only able to do that because you kidnapped Lau, Bruce. He needed you. He needed a masked criminal to commit crimes for him. By your own reasoning, Bruce, Gotham still needs Batman. Harvey tells Rachel that he loves her and wants to spend the rest of his life with her. Rachel is hesitant to say the same because she loves Bruce too. Bruce interrupts their conversation by abruptly strangling Harvey until he goes unconscious. For context, he's doing this because the Joker just showed up, but Rachel doesn't know that, and neither does Harvey. Wait, hold on, why didn't Bruce just tell Harvey to follow him to the panic room? And how does Bruce explain this to Harvey when he wakes up? Anyway, the Joker threatens people at the party. Rachel tells him to stop, and he tells her the story about how he got his scars. Notably, it's a different story than the one he told Gamble, involving his wife getting caught up by loan sharks. Which story is real? It doesn't fucking matter. The Joker is a liar, that's the point. He's pretending to have this dark backstory that justifies his actions, but we all know that his stories are fake, that he's just full of shit. Nothing the Joker says should ever be taken seriously because the Joker fucking lies. He lies constantly. He is always manipulating people. Batman shows up and tells the Joker to let Rachel go. The Joker does the obvious thing and drops her off a building. Batman dives after her and saves her, and then the scene just kinda ends. It cuts to the next day. Did the Joker leave? How'd he get away? I have questions about how this scene just kinda ends. Harvey isn't intimidated by the attempt on his life. He threatens to throw Lau into the county jail where all the people he betrayed are if he doesn't testify. I sure do love it when prosecutors threaten to kill witnesses if they don't testify. Batman talks to Alfred, who warns him that the mob has turned to a man they don't fully understand. Batman says the criminals aren't complicated and that they just have to figure out what the Joker's after. Alfred tells a story about when he was a young soldier working in Burma. There was a bandit who kept raiding their British Special Forces caravans, stealing the jewels Alfred used to bribe tribal leaders. Alfred explains that the bandit wasn't stealing the jewels to sell them, he was just throwing them away. He says some men aren't looking for anything logical like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn. Hot take? Alfred is full of shit. Even within his story, he's full of shit. The details are scarce, but he explains that A, the bandit was sabotaging the operations of the SAS in a British colony, and that B, the bandit wasn't motivated by money. And from this, Alfred concludes that the bandit had no motives whatsoever and was just doing this because he was chaotic evil and just wanted to cause chaos. Dear viewer, can you think of any other reason a man from a British colony would want to undermine the British military? If your answer is because he didn't want the British Empire ruling over Myanmar, then ding 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 ding, we have a winner. The story is vague enough that we can't really tell the bandit's motives, but also, that's a valid interpretation, and quite frankly, it's an interpretation that makes a whole lot more sense. This speech speaks to a child's understanding of terrorism, this idea that evil happens not because of other people having motives that makes them believe their actions are justified, but because they're evil and they do evil stuff for the sake of evil. And that simply isn't true. And this toddler-level understanding of geopolitics was the stance of the US government during the era this film was written, and it's how millions of Americans conceptualized evil. There was this idea, popularized by George Bush, that terrorists hate us for our freedom. They dislike the United States because the United States is so awesome and never does anything evil, and they just want to watch the world burn because they hate our freedom, because we're so good. Our government, led by George Bush, is so good that they did 9/11. That's why they did 9/11, because George Bush was awesome. And that is the most cartoonishly stupid fucking lie on the planet. We know what motivated 9/11. Osama bin Laden clearly stated that he saw it as a retaliation to American military interventions in the Arabian Peninsula, American support of Israel, and the Iraq sanctions. The motivation behind 9/11 was to stop the US from murdering civilians in the Middle East, okay? And it didn't work, and even if it did work, it would still have been horrifically evil. Killing civilians is horribly, horribly evil. It was evil when bin Laden killed 3,000 people on 9/11, and it was evil when the US military killed orders of magnitude more people during the War on Terror. Killing people is wrong. That's a simple concept, but it's a concept that by and large Americans do not believe in. When this movie came out, Americans believed that killing was awesome. Killing was heroic. Killing gets you medals and parades and movies about how badass you are because you're fighting against the amorphous blob of evil brown people who have no motives and just do evil stuff because they hate our freedom. Terrorism is wrong. Terrorism is always wrong. But when this movie came out, the US military was the most violent, most deadly terrorist organization on the planet. Shit, by the later parts of the War on Terror, the United States military was killing more civilians than the Taliban. But they were allowed to be violent. They were allowed to be murderers and bomb hospitals and commit every fucking war crime in the book because American soldiers, they have motives. When they do evil, it's because they're bringing democracy to the Middle East or stopping terrorism or whatever fucking bullshit lie we're going with that week. The people they fight, the Muslims, they don't fight for causes or to stop murderers from slaughtering civilians. They just want to watch the world burn. And beyond being horrible because people die, the problem with thinking that other people just want to watch the world burn is that it prevents you from learning from your mistakes. It prevents you from understanding what causes war and violence. The US killed a bunch of civilians in the Middle East, and that caused 9/11, so the US decided to kill a bunch more civilians in the Middle East. And shockingly, this didn't stop terrorism because it contributed to the anger that inspired that terrorism in the first place. Well, I can tell a few days ago at the time of recording, and quite possibly again, by the time this video comes out, there was a genocide going on in Gaza. The United States was funding this genocide. We were funding horrible, horrible atrocities. And this genocide did not keep us safe because if my family was killed when American bombs were dropped on a hospital, I would dedicate the rest of my life to killing as many Americans as possible. Not because I just wanted to watch the world burn or hated them for their freedom, but because I hated evil and wanted to take a fucking stand against it to ensure no one else was murdered by American terrorism. Paying the Israeli military to hunt down ambulances and pump 5-year-olds full of machine gun rounds doesn't fucking keep us safe, and even if it did, it would still be unacceptable. Every member of Congress who voted to give funds to Israel in the past 2 years or voted to invade the Middle East decades earlier deserves to be arrested for murder and spend the rest of their life in a dark cell. Fuck you if you disagree. I know this tangent has gone on too long and gotten off topic, but God, there has been so much evil committed by the United States in the name of fighting terrorism. Let's get back to the superhero movie about Batman fighting terrorism. Cops find a crime scene with hints that the Joker is planning to assassinate the mayor at the funeral for Commissioner Loeb. Bruce ends up taking a shot brick out of a wall so that he can study it and find fingerprints? What? That's not... What? The bullet is shattered! And he studies it by having a minigun. Not the type of gun that shot the brick, by the way. A different type of gun. Shoots some bricks and then having his super Batman AI study how the bullets fired by a different gun shattered so he can reverse engineer how the Joker's bullet shattered. And no! This isn't how anything works. Fingerprints are made of sweat. They would have evaporated when the gun fired. They would not still be intact when you put the shattered bullet back together. Meanwhile, accountant Coleman Reese discovers that Bruce Wayne has been embezzling stuff so he can be Batman. He requests a bribe. Lucius asks if he really wants to try and blackmail a violent criminal like Batman, and Reese backs off. I love threatening to hurt people, so they do what you want. I love that it happens so fucking often in this movie. Also mentioning this because it's relevant for later, Reese offhandedly clues Lucius into the fact that Bruce is doing a secret military telecommunications project. I sure hope it isn't anything shady. Anyway, Batman uses the fingerprint to find some tied-up cops. The Joker has stolen their uniform so he can assassinate the mayor. Apparently none of the other cops noticed. Hey, that guy standing next to me has very noticeable facial scars, just like the famous terrorist who murdered the police commissioner. I wonder if that's relevant to anything. Quick question. Why are they doing the funeral outside? Like, the mayor knows that the Joker is planning to assassinate him, so he holds a big funeral outside where anyone in the surrounding buildings can snipe him? Why? Why are you so stupid, Mayor? This is why Jacob treated you like shit. Anyway, the Joker shoots the mayor. Gordon dives in front of him, but is shot and killed in the process. Then, the Joker somehow escapes despite being surrounded by cops. The other cops tell Gordon's wife about what happened, and she screams at Batman, calling it his fault. Batman kidnaps Sal Maroni and tortures him, dropping him off a building to break his legs so he'll talk. This torture, like all torture, doesn't fucking work. Maroni says he won't tell Batman anything because Batman has rules against killing. The Joker has no rules. One of the Joker's goons, Thomas Schiff, is shot in the leg during the assassination attempt and left behind. Dent discovers that he's wearing a name tag that says Rachel Dawes and loses it. He kidnaps Schiff and then, you won't believe this, he tortures him for information. Harvey loads a gun and holds it to Schiff's head, flipping his lucky coin to decide if he pulls the trigger. Batman stops him, asking if he'd leave a man's life to chance. But of course, as we all know, he wasn't just leaving it to chance. He wasn't actually going to pull the trigger, he was just pretending to be about to murder someone to force them to confess, which is better, I guess. Batman explains that Schiff is a paranoid schizophrenic who doesn't know anything. He says that Harvey was the symbol of hope he could never be. His stand against crime was the first legitimate ray of light in Gotham in decades. If anyone saw this, all of that would be undone. All the criminals would go free, and Jim Gordon would have died for nothing. And also, a mentally ill man would have been shot in the head. That's also one of the problems with this, Batman. It's weird you didn't bring up that problem. It's kind of bad that Batman is putting so much faith in Dent, even after seeing that he's just as violent as Batman once the veneer of civility is washed away. This guy is a ticking time bomb who Batman trusts completely. Batman tells Harvey to call a press conference so he can turn himself in. He says that Gotham is in Dent's hands now. Dent is angered by this, shouting that Batman can't give in. Bruce tells Rachel that there's enough blood on his hands and that he sees what he would have to become to stop men like the Joker. He asks again about them being together. Rachel tells him not to make her his one hope for a normal life and points out that they obviously won't be together after Bruce goes to prison. Alfred is disappointed that Bruce is turning himself in to save people, saying that he should instead endure this. The people will hate him, but that's the point of Batman. He can be the outcast. He can make the choice no one else can face. The right choice. Bruce says that he can't endure this. At the press conference, Harvey asks if they should give in to the demands of a terrorist. Batman is an outlaw, but that's not why they're demanding he turn himself in. They're doing it because they're scared. One day, Batman will have to answer for his crimes, but to them, not to a madman. Nice argument, liberal, but counterpoint, no more dead cops! Harvey is swayed by this eloquent speech and admits that he's Batman. But the chin! The butt chin! If the chin does not fit, you must acquit! Rachel is furious. Alfred tells her that Batman stands for something more important than a terrorist's whims. He's making the sacrifice to not be a hero, to be something more. Rachel calls this a load of shit and gives Alfred a letter to give to Bruce when the time is right. The cops plan to transport Harvey to jail via a police caravan. Harvey, of course, knows that the Joker will attack the convoy, giving Batman a chance to save him. Rachel tells him not to use himself as bait because of all the people counting on him to turn the city around. Harvey flips a coin to see if he goes through with risking his life, but as Rachel discovers when she catches the double-headed coin, he makes his own luck. Homestuck did this seem better. The Joker attacks the caravan. Batman shows up, and the Joker blows up the Batmobile with a rocket launcher. Then, the Batmobile transforms into a motorcycle. What? This thing was designed to be an armored truck to be used in the Middle East. Why does it have an ability to have its front wheels separate to become a motorcycle? Why did Lucius design it this way? Anyway, Batman flips the Joker's truck. The Joker gets out and stands in the middle of the street saying, "Hit me! Come on, hit me!" He's trying to get Batman to kill him. He wants to corrupt Batman, make him break his code and become a murderer, because that counts as a win in his book. Imagine if you tried this with Michael Keaton's Batman. "Come on, hit me!" "Okay!" Boom! And then he just fucking runs him over. Batman swerves and crashes his motorcycle. The Joker's about to kill him, except, oh shit, the guy driving the armored car is actually Jim Gordon, who didn't die. He faked his death to keep the Joker from hurting his family, I guess, and he didn't tell them this because he's a bad husband. Also, the fact that Gordon is still alive isn't what destroyed Joker's scheme. Any cop could have pointed a gun at the Joker and forced him to surrender. What did this accomplish besides being an, oh shit, what a twist moment? Why did Gordon have to fake his death? What does that add to the film? Harvey is set free and driven away by Wirtz, one of Gordon's guys. This gets a weird look from this cop, who for some reason isn't named Renee Montoya. I hope this isn't because she's secretly evil. The mayor makes Gordon the new police commissioner, and I guess that's the end of the film. It's been 90 minutes already. That's a decent film length. If we get a decent denouement, then this should be wrapped up pretty well. Oh shit. Uh-oh. Harvey got kidnapped. Gordon tries to interrogate the Joker in a dark room, but the Joker won't talk. Gordon leaves, and the lights turn on, revealing that Batman is behind the Joker. How? There's only one door to this room. To do this, Batman would have had to have already been waiting inside before the Joker was brought inside, and then just stood there silently while he waited for Gordon to show up? How long was he waiting? Why didn't the Joker notice that he was standing behind him? Shouldn't he have heard the breathing? This is a kind of dumb film sometimes. Batman beats the shit out of the Joker because he loves torturing people. He really loves torturing people in a way that is kind of uncomfortable. Look, you aren't stupid. You know what I'm going to say. When this movie came out, the stance of the US government was that torture is awesome and should happen as much as possible. That torturing people for information was heroic. But of course, torture is horrible. The atrocities carried out at Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo were horrible. Yet, millions of Americans accepted them for the same reason they accept Batman torturing the Joker or Sal Maroni or Arnold Flass. A, because they deserve it, and B, because it is the only way to fight terrorism. Addressing the former point, did they? Did they really? How do you know? How do you know that the men imprisoned without trial are guilty? If their guilt is so easy to prove, then why not give them trials? Do you trust the government so much that you believe that they will always be correct about their suspicions 100% of the time? Because they aren't. We flat out know that multiple people tortured at Guantanamo were innocent. Oops. It's a shame that we don't spit on soldiers in this country anymore. The fact that we not only did not throw every single soldier who ever served at the Guantanamo torture nightmare factory in prison, but actually kept the fucking torture nightmare factory open to the present day is a fucking atrocity. And regarding point B, the thing is, in real life, torture doesn't fucking work. The torture during the War on Terror was useless. It didn't provide useful information. And interestingly, the same thing is true within the context of this film. None of the torture scenes in The Dark Knight ever provide any useful information. Torturing Flass and Begins did, but Maroni doesn't say anything. Schiff doesn't say anything, and the Joker flat out lies to Batman instead of telling him what he wants to know. It is bizarre to see a movie that argues that torture is necessary because it provides information, but also to have that torture never fucking work in this movie. It's so weird. Joker says that things can't go back to the way they were like the mob wants. Batman's changed things forever. The Joker says that he doesn't want to kill Batman anymore because Batman completes him. Batman calls him garbage. Who kills for money? The Joker says that Batman is just a freak, like him. The cops tolerate him because they need him, but as soon as they don't, they'll cast him aside. They'll drop their morals at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. The Joker says he'll show Batman that when the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. The Joker isn't a monster. He's just ahead of the curve. Batman asks where Harvey is. Joker says that he'll have to break his one rule to know the truth. The truth that the only sensible way to live in this world is without rules. God, this guy is so deep and smart and totally isn't wrong about everything. After watching this scene, I want to make an impact font meme about how cool and based and cool this guy is. The Joker reveals that he hasn't just kidnapped Harvey, he's also kidnapped Rachel. The two of them are strapped to bombs, and Batman only has time to save one. He has to choose. While tied to the bombs, Rachel tells Harvey over the phone that she loves him and that she doesn't want Batman to save her because she doesn't want to live without Harvey. She chooses him. Batman chooses Rachel, except the Joker lied. He gave Batman Harvey's address instead of Rachel's. Harvey is furious that Batman chose to save him. Rachel, meanwhile, dies with a smile on her face. Speaking of faces, Harvey's gets all asymmetrical.
Also, Joker escapes from jail using a bomb planted in a prisoner. He takes Lau with him to hand over to the mob. A lot of people criticize this movie for the Joker having unrealistic plans that rely on things he doesn't know about, but honestly, he doesn't. What he does is set up plans where every outcome works out for him. If he kills Harvey during the convoy scene, he wins. If Batman kills him, he wins. If he gets arrested, that's fine. He has a backup plan to escape from jail. If Batman saves Harvey, he wins because Harvey's heart has been shattered by Rachel's death. If Batman saves Rachel, he wins because he's killed the hope of Gotham. If both die, then goddamn, super victory for the Joker. Batman stands over the ruins of Rachel's bombing, and this is meant to evoke 9/11 imagery, right? This is Batman at ground zero. This is a movie about 9/11. He finds Harvey's coin in the ruins, half-burned, and leaves it for Harvey at the hospital. Alfred reads Rachel's letter, where she says that she chooses Harvey. He says that she meant it when she told him that they could be together if a day came when Gotham didn't need Batman. But she doesn't think a day will come where Bruce doesn't need Batman. Heartbroken, Bruce sits in his apartment. He asks Alfred if he's responsible for what happened. Alfred says that he inspired good, but he spat in the face of criminals. Things were always going to have to get worse before they got better. He says that Rachel believed in what Batman stands for. Bruce says that Gotham needs its real hero, Harvey Dent, and he let him get blown half to hell. Bruce says that Rachel was going to wait for him. Harvey can never know. Alfred says, yep, sure. She was going to wait for you, Master Wayne. What's this letter? Oh, this is my grocery list. This definitely isn't a breakup letter. Anyway, let's talk about something different. Bruce asks how Alfred caught the bandit. Alfred's response, they burned the forest down. Yikes. Hope you didn't murder a bunch of people when you burned that forest down, Alfred. Is that what Pennyworth is about? What do you mean it's a prequel to V for Vendetta? I think that if Alan Moore was forced to watch Pennyworth, he would commit war crimes. Kind of like Alfred did in Myanmar. Gordon visits Harvey in the hospital. Harvey asks about the nickname they had for him when he worked in internal affairs. Gordon mutters that it was Two-Face, which is ironic because he's all crispy now. Wait, they called him Two-Face because he was based and fought against corruption? What's next? Calling the Riddler because he solved the riddle of curing cancer? Gordon says he's sorry, and Harvey says, No, you're not. Not yet. I wonder what he means by that. Hopefully it's something good. Meanwhile, Joker leads the mobsters to the warehouse where Lau and all their money is waiting. Joker decides to burn his half of the money, but symbolism, his fire destroys the whole pile. And also kills Lau. Joker mocks the head mobster, this Chechen guy who is named the Chechen, saying that all he cares about is money. It's not about the money. It's about sending a message.
Hold on. It isn't just because he wants to watch the world burn? It's because he wants to advance an ideology? Wow, Alfred was full of shit.
Reese, that accounting guy from earlier, decides to reveal that Bruce Wayne is Batman, but in an hour. Wait, Hedge Gotham, Reese. Fucking Geraldo Rivera-ass reporting. Joker calls into the news saying he's changed his mind. A world without Batman would be so boring. And he doesn't want Reese spoiling the fun. He gives an ultimatum. If Reese isn't dead in 1 hour, he'll blow up a hospital. Chaos erupts in Gotham. Hospitals rush to evacuate. Gordon goes to take Reese into police custody and finds an angry mob at the news station. One man tries to shoot Reese, barely missing. At this point, it seems that the Joker is right. Because this is what it's all about. He thinks that people are animals, that at the first sign of trouble, ordinary people will toss aside their morals. His whole plan is to prove that he's right, that he isn't a monster, that he's just ahead of the curve. This movie is heavily inspired by The Killing Joke, a comic where he tries to prove the same thing. But the thing is, in The Killing Joke, he's wrong. The whole point of that comic is that the Joker is full of shit. Gordon saves Reese from a second assassination attempt, disarming a cop whose wife is in the hospital before he can shoot Reese, while Bruce crashes a Lamborghini to stop a man in a truck from T-boning the police car. Reese decides against revealing Batman's identity, so now all the public knows that this man who works for Bruce Wayne figured out who Batman is. Amidst all this chaos, the Joker sneaks into Harvey's hospital room. He says that it isn't his fault Rachel died. Harvey points out that it was his plan, and the Joker says, Do I really look like a guy with a plan? Yes, you do. You have a plan. You have so many schemes. You do nothing but scheme and plan, Joker. This what you're doing right now? This is a plan. Friendly reminder, the Joker is always full of shit. The Joker says that he's just a dog chasing cars. He just does things. But Maroney and Gordon, they have plans. They try to control the world. All the Joker does is show how pathetic their attempts to control things are. He says nobody panics when things go according to plan, even if the plan is horrifying. If he told the press that a gangbanger will get shot or a truckload of soldiers will get blown up, nobody would panic because it's all part of the plan. But say one mayor will die and everyone loses their minds. Okay, admittedly, he has a point about the public treating some deaths as acceptable, but counterpoint, he's just saying shit to manipulate Harvey. The Joker says that he's introducing anarchy, but not anarchy, he isn't doing mutual aid. Chaos, that's what he's doing. He's introducing chaos. And chaos is fair. Joker hands Harvey a gun, and Harvey decides that he's going to make random chance his whole thing now. He flips his coin, now burned on one side from the flames that killed Rachel. He tells the Joker, heads you stay, scratch you go. But the Joker is lucky, so he gets to go fight the guy wearing a black costume with animal ears. Anyway, the Joker blows up the hospital while still inside it. What if he just fucking died? He was right next to that explosion. What if he tripped and fucking died? What then? The movie would be worse? Yeah, probably. Also, he hijacks a bus full of hospital patients. Joker sends another snuff film into the news, revealing that Gotham is his now. If you don't like that, leave. Except, he left surprises in the bridges and tunnels, so you can only leave via ferry.
The surprise is that the bridges and tunnels are fine.
Gordon orders that one of the ferries be used to evacuate the 500 prisoners Harvey locked up in that abomination of a trial, because he thinks that the Joker will use the prisoners as goons for his scheme. Bruce shows Lucius that secret military telecommunications project he's been working on. He expanded Lucius's sonar thingamajig into a system that allows him to spy on every phone in Gotham, which apparently has a population of 30 million? Three things. First off, Gotham has a population of what now? 30 million? What? No, it does not. Gotham is vaguely New York, vaguely Chicago. It does not have 4 times the population of New York and 10 times the population of Chicago. 30 million is twice as big as Tokyo. Second, when? Lucius introduced the sonar tech to Bruce during this movie. That was a week ago, at most a month ago. How did Bruce expand this technology so quickly while fighting the Joker? Third, and this is the big one, how? How does this work? It records every conversation anyone ever has in Gotham? Cool. That's 30 million different conversations. How the fuck do you sort through that? How does a single person use the 50 monitors you set up to sort through 30 million different feeds? This is dumb! And also, again, this is eerily similar to American war on terror policy. The NSA famously illegally spied on millions of Americans in the name of fighting terrorism, something that stopped exactly 0 fucking terrorist attacks. Batman's spying is horrible, and admittedly, the film agrees with that point. Lucius says that no man should have this much power. Later, he destroys the machine because it's too horrible to ever be used again. Hell, the reason Bruce brought Lucius to the machine is because Lucius is the only one he trusts with that power. There's this undercurrent in this film that I think is interesting to unpack. A lot of people see this film as full-throated, unquestioning, bootlicking propaganda for the war on terror, and I don't think that's accurate. I think it's something worse. The spying and the torture, these things aren't treated as good by the film. They are supposed to be morally wrong. Batman doesn't think there should be vigilantes running around torturing criminals. He doesn't think there should be Big Brother listening to everyone's phones. He wants Gotham to be a place that doesn't need Batman, a city where they don't have to bend their morals. But Gotham isn't that city. The evil they face is too horrible to fight through any other means than by breaking their morals. The threat of terrorism is too monstrous to hold on to decency. He doesn't want to torture people. Torture is wrong, but it's the only way to stop terrorists from killing people. This isn't a movie that says torture or spying or authoritarianism are good things. No, it says the opposite, that they are monstrous. But more importantly, it says that they are necessary. It says that they are the only option. And that's a much more effective form of propaganda than downplaying the horrors of American war crimes. Because people aren't dumb. They know torture is evil. They know spying is wrong. But if you say that these things are the only option, that evil must be embraced for safety, then people will go along with evil. This film is really, really bad politically. It makes me feel dirty just talking about it, and yet I don't hate it, because it contains one of the greatest scenes I've ever seen in a superhero movie, a perfect refutation of the ideals it has espoused for most of its runtime. The film cuts to two ferries heading out of Gotham, one filled with prisoners, one filled with various ordinary people. The crews of the boats find bombs and detonators. The Joker comes on over the PA saying that they're all going to participate in a social experiment. If anyone attempts to leave the boats, the bombs go off. If the clock reaches midnight, the bombs go off. But the Joker has a way for the people aboard the boats to live. If they use their detonators to blow up the other boat, prove they're as selfish and as depraved as he is, he'll spare them. He asks them to choose between wanted scumbags or sweet innocent civilians. It's the prisoner's dilemma, and the clock is ticking. The people on both boats know that the other boat is surely right about to push the button, murder them to save themselves. Every second that passes is another second where they risk their lives. The National Guard guys on the passenger boat grab their guns as the passengers step forward to grab the detonators. This guy, who doesn't have a name, but he reminds me of Mike Naig, and that's a reference that like 3 of you get. Mike Naig demands that they should at least talk it over. Mother asks why her children should die. The men on the other boat, they had their chance. The passengers say that the men on the other boat are talking over the same thing and demand it be put to a vote. Meanwhile, on the prisoner boat, the prisoners are on the verge of rioting, leading the guards to fire their guns into the air to keep them back. Batman uses his NSA 9000 to track down the Joker. Through the window of the building, Batman and the cops spot people in hospital outfits, tied up, and clowns holding guns. The SWAT guys are ready to burst in and shoot the clowns, but Batman can tell that there's something wrong. He asks Gordon to wait, but Gordon can't. Every second that passes, the people on the ferries get closer to blowing each other up. There isn't time. They need to break in immediately and save Harvey Dent. He has to save Harvey Dent! Batman breaks in before the SWAT team can and discovers that the clowns are actually hostages with guns taped to their hands, while the doctors and nurses are actually Joker's goons. Batman is forced to beat up a bunch of cops to keep them from killing innocent people. ACAB, am I right? Wait, hold on. Why doesn't he just call the SWAT guys and tell them that the hostages are dressed up like clowns? There was an easier solution in this situation, Bruce. Back at the boats, the passengers vote. 196 against and 340 for killing the prisoners. But the ferry pilot hesitates because they're still there. The other prisoners haven't killed them. Not yet! Speaking of which, the guards hold back the army of prisoners. One shouts, "Do you want to die?" And they don't. They're just as scared as the prisoners. A massive, tattooed black man approaches the warden, who is holding the detonator. He says, "You don't want to die, but you don't know how to take a life." He asks the warden to give it to him, saying that if he doesn't, the other prisoners will kill him and take the detonator anyway. He says, give it to him, and he'll do what you should have done 10 minutes ago. Meanwhile, Nate says that if no one wants to get their hands dirty, he'll do it. The prisoners, they made their choice. They chose to murder and steal. It makes no sense for them to die too. He takes the detonator. Batman reaches the Joker, but ends up pinned down beneath a window, unable to stop him. The Joker looks off to the harbor. He says, "And here we go." But the boats don't explode. The tattooed prisoner throws the detonator overboard and sits down, calmly waiting to die. Nick sets his detonator down. The clock strikes 12, and both boats are still there. The smile disappears from the Joker's face. Batman asks him, "What were you trying to prove? That deep down, everyone's as ugly as he is?" The Joker's wrong. That's the point of the film. The people are better than he thinks they are. The point is that despite the Joker's nihilistic horseshit, when the chips are down, when people are scared, when they are faced with oblivion, still, people are good. Still, they reject cowardice and cruelty. There are lines that should never be crossed. Rules that should never be broken. Killing is wrong. It doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter if you're scared. Killing is still wrong. And ordinary people believe that deep down. The Joker loses. The people refuse to kill to save themselves because people are good. I love this scene. It's amazing. It's the reason I love this movie. And at the same time, it's a scene that occurs in a movie that is filled with a ton of politics that rub me the wrong way. Like, this is a miniseries about fascism, and so much of the Dark Knight trilogy is either fascist or, at the very least, the soil that fascism springs from. But this scene isn't. This scene says that people are good. And that is the paradox of the Dark Knight. The Joker tries to do another Scar story, and Batman just throws him off a building. I mean, he does save him with his grappling hook, though. He's still Batman. I mean, after we just got that big scene about why killing is wrong, and the Joker is full of shit because he thinks that everyone deep down is a murderer, it would be really weird if Batman killed the Joker right now. That would prove the Joker right. As he's dangling, the Joker reveals he has an ace up his sleeve. Harvey Dent! Can we trust him? No. No, we cannot. While Batman has been Batmaning, Harvey has been two-facing. He did the coin flip thing for Wirtz Maroney and not Renee Montoya. Now, he's got a new enemy to get revenge on. Gordon. Harvey kidnaps Gordon's family, holding them hostage at the building where Rachel died. Joker says that he took Gotham's White Knight and brought him down to his level. Says that when the people of Gotham find out that the Joker corrupted the best of them, their spirits will break completely. Two-Face calls Gordon to the warehouse. He says that if Gordon had listened to him, stood up against corruption instead of dealing with the devil, Rachel would still be alive. Two-Face asks if Gordon has ever talked to the person he loves most, had to lie to them, tell them that it's going to be alright when you know you're about to see them die. And no, he hasn't. He hasn't experienced that, Harv, because being kidnapped by the Joker and tied to a bunch of exploding barrels isn't really a universal experience. That's kind of just the thing that you've had to go through. Gordon begs Two-Face to put the gun down and not hurt his family. Harvey says that he's only going to hurt the person Gordon loves most, which, canonically, is his son Jimmy Jr. Sorry, Barb, you don't get to be Batgirl or Oracle in this continuity, and also, your dad canonically doesn't love you as much as your brother. This scene is a Rick and Morty joke. Batman arrives and says, "You don't want to hurt the boy." Two-Face says, it's not about what he wants, it's about what's fair. He says that Batman and Gordon thought that they could be decent men in an indecent world. They thought they could lead by example, bend the rules without breaking them, and they were wrong. The world is cruel, and the only morality in a cruel world is chance. Unbiased, unprejudiced, fair. Jimmy Jr. has the same chance Rachel had, 50-50. But how are you going to determine that? By flipping a coin? That's just heads or tails. He'd need 50 coins and 50 more, and then Batman could go to his computer and analyze it with science. Again, College humor ruined these movies. Batman says that what happened to Rachel wasn't chance. They decided to act. Batman didn't flip a coin to decide who to save. He chose Rachel, and then the Joker fucking lied. Batman says that they knew the risks, that all of them are responsible for the consequences. Two-Face says that he's the only one who lost everything. Batman says, no, and I mean, he's right, but Harvey doesn't know that. You're just coming off as an asshole, Batman. Batman says that the Joker chose Harvey because he was the best of them, to prove that even someone as good as him could fall. You know, there's something to be said about this movie's focus on the one hero, the one savior of Gotham. Batman wants it to be Harvey Dent, but Dent was never capable of being that White Knight. I don't know if this is intentional, like maybe the writers intended for this to be a flaw of Batman's, that he put too much stock in Dent, but at the same time, the film does pretty definitively say that Batman is the one real savior of Gotham. Like he was wrong about who the great man capable of incarnating Gotham's destiny was, not about the fact that Gotham needed one. Batman says that Two-Face isn't letting chance decide. He's the one pointing the gun. He asks Two-Face to point it at the people responsible. Two-Face accepts this argument, deciding to flip it for Batman, then himself, then Jimmy Jr. Let me just push my glasses up to solidify that I'm a nerd. The odds of Jimmy dying aren't actually 50-50, because Jimmy's outcome is dependent on Two-Face's coin flip. Like, the third coin doesn't get flipped if Two-Face commits suicide, so that's actually 1 in 4 odds. 1 in 8 if we count Batman's flip, so honestly, Gordon has no reason to be worried. Okay, so Two-Face shoots Batman and doesn't shoot himself, so now it is 50-50, but still, in my defense, when you're right 7/8 of the time, you're wrong 1/8 of the time. Two-Face orders Gordon to lie to his son, say it'll be alright. He flips his coin, but before it can decide Jimmy's fate, Batman tackles Two-Face off the edge of the building. Technically, this isn't murder. Technically, it's voluntary manslaughter, which Batman has consistently treated as A-okay in this trilogy. His code remains unbroken. I mean, within the context of the film, he considers it broken, but this isn't substantially worse than what he did to Roz and Frazier. Staring at Dent's corpse, Gordon says that the Joker won. All of those prisoners locked up by Dent will go free and hot take. They should. If one of the chief investigators in a case is found to be a violent criminal, something to cast doubt on the validity of any evidence they played a part in obtaining, then that evidence shouldn't be admissible in court. Also, now that I think about it, Harvey didn't even lock those guys up. They haven't even been to trial yet, and the prosecution's main witness burned to death. I'm gonna be honest, Jim, I don't think a lot of those guys were going to go to jail anyway. Gordon says that everything Harvey fought for, everything Rachel died for, whatever chance Batman gave Gotham of fixing itself, dies with Dent. The people will lose all hope. Batman says that the Joker cannot win. The people can never know what Harvey Dent did. Gotham needs its true hero. Batman offers to frame himself for all of Harvey's murders, something that, now that I think about it, doesn't make any fucking sense, because Ramirez is still alive and was a witness to Harvey's crimes. I mean, not Montoya is still alive and was a witness to Harvey's crimes. The point is, she's still alive. She can tell people what happened. Batman says you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. He can be the murderer because he isn't a hero like Dent. He's whatever Gotham needs him to be. Batman flees, chased by cops. We see a montage of the aftermath. Gordon lying that Dent was a hero. Gordon smashing the bat signal. Lucius destroying the Spy-O-Matic. Alfred burning Rachel's letter. Batman says that sometimes the truth isn't good enough. Sometimes people deserve more. And I'm going to disagree with that. I'm making another video that's quickly spiraling out of control into a behemoth that will never get finished. And the arc words of that video is, because the truth matters. And I believe those words so devoutly that you can carve them on my fucking tombstone. I don't believe that the public should be lied to by authority figures to preserve their hope in the system. I think that people are resilient enough to know that a prosecutor was a cunt and still think murder is wrong. That's my hot take. As the film ends, Gordon says that Batman is the hero Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs right now. A silent guardian, a watchful protector, a dark knight.
He said it! He said it!
So, is Christopher Nolan a good writer and director? Because, I enjoy a lot of his films. I think Inception and Interstellar are masterpieces. Dunkirk is an amazing film. But every time I try to deeply analyze one of his monologues, I'm struck by how dumb they are on closer inspection. He loves characters saying empty platitudes about the themes of his films. I think Christopher Nolan puts a lot of thought into the themes of his movies, and they often have very deep, very complex things to say, but also, he is a sucker for clunky faux philosophic dialogue. Like saying love is the one thing that transcends time and space is clunky and delivers the themes of Interstellar with the subtlety of a sledgehammer, but also, that film is incredible. Those themes, it's explaining to the audience, because no one thought the audience was too stupid to tell the movie was about Coop's relationship with his daughter, are actually really, really good themes that make that movie amazing. The Dark Knight is the best of the trilogy, and it isn't even close. It's amazing from a technical standpoint. Most of the performances are exceptional, but beyond that, I cried while writing the script, because the boat scene is so incredible, and what this movie has to say is simply that good. And also, it's an escalation from the pretty decent politics of Batman Begins into some troubling authoritarian beliefs. The same beliefs that dominated America during the height of the War on Terror. And the next film only hammers in those issues. I think The Dark Knight Rises is the most questionable movie of this trilogy, and that's saying something. It begins with a flashback of Gordon lying his ass off at the end of the last movie, saying Harvey was the hero they needed. He chokes up as he says that he believed in Harvey Dent, and that it will be a long time before someone inspires the people of Gotham like Harvey did. Did he, though? Because the only people we see Harvey inspire are Batman and the cops. I'm not sure how well regarded he is by the average Gothamite. Cut to Uzbekistan, where we are introduced to the most beloved character in cinematic history, CIA. That's his name, CIA. The novelization names him Bill Wilson, but he introduces himself by saying, I'm CIA, because that is his true name. CIA is in Uzbekistan to extract Russian nuclear physicist Leonid Pavel, except the mercenary escorting Pavel also has 3 men with bags over their heads. He explains that they're mercenaries who tried to kidnap Pavel, working for a mysterious man named Bane. CIA says, oh cool, I'll take these random dudes with me on my plane. So he takes the random dudes with bags over their heads onto his plane without asking any more questions or checking who they are under the bags. But why, though? Like, is he just taking random prisoners back to the US? These prisoners who he knows nothing about, based solely on the words of a random mercenary who, spoilers, works for Bane? While he's doing a secret mission to rescue Pavel, he just takes the random men onto his plane? This CIA guy is a bit of a dipshit. The thing is, like all CIA agents, CIA is incapable of orgasming if he isn't actively committing a war crime, so he decides to torture and murder the prisoners during the plane ride. Specifically, he lies on the flight manifest, saying he only took one prisoner with him, and tries to get the prisoners to tell him about Bane in return for him not murdering them. Specifically, he does this by holding them up to the door of the plane and then firing a gun to make them think that they've just been executed. It may be shocking to see a CIA agent torture and murder people based solely on the shoddy evidence of an untrustworthy mercenary with ties to terrorism told me they were terrorists, but actually that is pretty accurate to how the CIA worked during the War on Terror. Now, you may be worried that these men are innocent, but don't worry. As previously shown in this universe, the United States government is unquestionably accurate in its assessment of who is guilty of crimes. That's why it's fine for Harvey to violate due process, because you don't need due process in fucking Fantasyland. While CIA is doing his plane door torture, one of the captured men, who has a very strange voice, asks why CIA would shoot a prisoner before throwing them out of a plane. This is supposed to be a gotcha, like, it's proof that CIA isn't actually planning to kill them, but like, shooting him in the head first, isn't that ridiculous? Like, the plane is flying pretty low. It is possible for them to survive that fall. Unlikely, but possible. Shooting them in the head makes sure they die and can't tell anyone about CIA torturing them while furiously masturbating. Man, it's cool that this film begins by showing that there is a violent, dangerous terrorist group out there running around committing atrocities, and then that plot point gets forgotten about. Like, come on, you want to make a movie where Batman fights terrorism? Why are you showing the CIA doing a bunch of terrorist shit if you aren't going to end the movie with Batman driving to Langley and beating the shit out of a bunch of violent criminals who think they're above the law? CIA rips off the prisoner's hood to reveal
Bane! Who talks like this and has a really weird accent? I've destroyed your city! I fucked your mom! I'm gonna take this mask off because it's actually really uncomfortable and I can't wear my glasses when I have the mask on, and I need those to read my script.
Bane reveals that he actually allowed himself to get captured so he could force Pavel to tell him what he'd told the CIA. Couldn't you have, beaten that info out of Pavel? How does you being on a plane with CIA make him more likely to talk? A second plane, piloted by Bane's minions, shows up, destroying the CIA plane and flying off with Bane and Pavel. Before being lifted out, Bane forces Pavel to give a blood transfusion to a corpse so that the CIA won't realize that Pavel was kidnapped and will think he died in the crash. But, that's dumb. Okay, first off, they're going to know this was a deliberate attack. The wings and tail fell off minutes before the plane crashed. It will be obvious that this wasn't a normal crash. And setting that aside, what about Corpsey Boy's teeth? Won't they check the dental records before they do a DNA test? And also, if they do a DNA test, won't they realize, hey, wait a minute, this guy's blood is 99% someone else's? What, are they going to think that Pavel got dental surgery and replaced most of his blood while the plane was crashing? Bane also orders one of his minions to stay behind because CIA had listed a prisoner on the flight log. The minion is cool with this, asking, have we started the fire? To which Bane replies, the fire rises! This is upside down. The fire rises! What if I just wear it like a hat? This looks dumb, but I'm gonna do it. This is a stupid fucking plan. It's a cool opening set piece, but it's so fucking stupid. Why did Bane do this? He already had Pavel captured. He was in the car with Bane's minion, but instead he hands Pavel over to the CIA so he can do a risky-ass flight stunt to kidnap Pavel again so the CIA will think that he died. A, he could have just left the fake body in Uzbekistan and made the CIA think that he killed Pavel before they found him. And B, why does it matter? The fact that the CIA thinks Pavel is dead doesn't matter because the CIA never again appears in this movie. Cut to Gotham. The mayor is hosting a party at Bruce's home to celebrate Harvey Dent Day, a day celebrating Harvey Dent. I'm sure that the average Gothamite loves this holiday and definitely actually celebrates it. This totally isn't just a thing that the police made up. Mayor says that Harvey's uncompromising stand against organized crime made Gotham a safer place. Organized crime is gone now because Harvey's death led to the passage of the Dent Act, which, quote, gave law enforcement teeth in its fight against the mob. You may be asking what the Harvey Dent Act did. Well, according to a promo image, it gave stricter penalties and denial of parole for people convicted of mob shit. The promo image, which is a press release by the mayor's office, says this closes a loophole that hampered the city's ability to stamp out organized crime.
What loophole? What fucking loophole? By loophole, do you mean the existence of parole? Because that isn't a fucking loophole. That's people serving the sentences that they are given by a court of law. You wanting people to have longer sentences doesn't mean that the judge giving a different sentence is a loophole. What fucking loophole? Words mean things. You can't just call anything you don't like a fucking loophole, asshole.
In a press release, the mayor says, "To those who claim this legislation creates a police state, my answer is very simple. Before the Dent Act, our city was so desperate that we placed our trust behind a masked vigilante who ultimately murdered the man who was truly Gotham's shining hope. Luckily for us, the hope has endured. This bill is Harvey Dent's legacy, and I intend to protect it." I wish that stick of dynamite from the Spanish boat blew this asshole up.
Thank you, Bane! You granted my wish!
Gordon talks next and is prepared to confess everything, but chickens out and says that all he'll say is that Harvey's death hasn't been for nothing. As he says this, we see Bruce, who has been watching from a balcony, turn and walk away. Gordon's second-in-command, Foley, gossips with a congressman about how Gordon's wife dumped him and how Bruce has been a shut-in for the 8 years since the last movie. The congressman mentions that the mayor is planning to fire Gordon. Foley calls Gordon a hero, but the congressman says he was a war hero, and it's peacetime now. And honestly, he isn't wrong. The type of police department that you need to respond to violent armed terrorism and the type of police department you need when crime rates are low are very different. Gotham should scale back its police presence now that they aren't needed. I mean, the film argues that actually keeping a highly militarized police army is good even when it isn't necessary, but that's dumb, because when cops are hyper-militarized, they commit violent crimes. One of the maids, who we later find out is named Selena, is sent to deliver dinner to Bruce. She steals Martha's Pokeball necklace and also a copy of Bruce's fingerprints. Bruce catches her in the act, but she kicks his cane out from under him and backflips out a window, which is super ableist.
By the way, Bruce has a cane because he fucked up his knee when he killed Scaryface.
Selena sneaks away in the car of that one congressman who is horny and drunk. After the party, young cop John Blake talks to Gordon about how the congressman has gone missing. Gordon is dismissive because, congressman going missing, that isn't something that the police should be concerned with, what? Blake says that the streets are safe now, but Gordon still acts like they're at war. Blake asks if Gordon wants to know who the Batman was. Gordon says he knows exactly who he was. He was the Batman. Anyway, Alfred finds Bruce down in the Batcave detectiving into Selena's past. Alfred is hopeful Bruce will go back out into the world, but Bruce says there's nothing for him out there because Rachel is dead. Boo-hoo! Alfred says that during the years Bruce was training to become Batman, he kept hoping that Bruce wouldn't come back, that he'd find a wife and have some kids. Alfred says he fantasized that he would see Bruce at some cafe and then Bruce would be really rude and not say hello. In the morning, Blake finds the body of an orphan he knows in the sewers. He talks to the priest at the orphanage he attended as a kid, who explains that the homeless orphan boy aged out of the system because the Wayne Foundation stopped giving money to the orphanage. He also talks to dead kid McOrphanface's younger brother, who says that homeless people are being hired to do mysterious work in the sewers. Meanwhile, Selena delivers Bruce's fingerprints to Stryver, an evil guy working for Bane. Stryver attempts to kill her because she's a loose end, but Selena reveals that she brought the congressman she kidnapped with her. She tricks Stryver into sending a text to the congressman's phone, which causes the police to run in, leading to a big-ass shooting.
So, I can understand them tracking the congressman's phone, but were they all just sitting outside after they tracked it? Why didn't they go in? An entire SWAT team is here, as are Gordon and Blake. Why were they just sitting outside?
Gordon chases one of the goons into the sewers. A firefight breaks out, leading to an explosion, so Foley says, "Well, sucks to be you, Jim. We ain't going down there." The goons drag Gordon back to Bane's lair. Bane asks,
"Why the fuck did you bring him here? What purpose does you bringing him to our secret lair serve?"
Bane kills the goon, then finds Gordon's confession speech in his pockets. Gordon rolls into the dookie water and is swept away, although Bane's goons do manage to shoot him. Bane kills another minion as punishment for letting this bullshit happen. Blake ends up finding Gordon's unconscious body after it washes up where Orphan-Face's body washed up. The next day, he goes to talk with Bruce. He explains that Gordon told the other cops about Bane, but they didn't believe him because the idea of a criminal in Gotham wearing a mask is ridiculous. Like, sure, they believe he chased the criminal into the sewers and got shot by them, but a criminal wearing a mask? That's dumb and unbelievable. I guess the only solution is to ignore the fact that the police commissioner got shot because he's just so crazy to think a criminal would wear a mask. Blake reveals that he saw Bruce pretending to be a playboy once and was able to realize he was Batman because orphans possess the Shining. Blake begs Bruce to become Batman again. Alfred looks into Bane and tells Bruce that he carried out a coup in West Africa on the behalf of evil capitalist John Daggett. Not Roland Daggett, John Daggett. For some fucking reason they changed his name. Bruce asks why the funding of the orphanages is stopped, and Alfred explains that Bruce's charity is paid out of the profits of Wayne Enterprises, but there haven't been any profits in years. Later, it's explained that Bruce bankrupted Wayne Enterprises by funneling all their R&D money into funding a green energy nuclear fusion project, which ended up not working. Bruce sneaks into Gordon's hospital room, and Gordon says they were in this together, then Batman disappeared. Bruce says Batman wasn't needed because they won. Gordon says they built things on a lie, that there's evil rising from what they tried to bury. Batman has to come back. Bruce asks, what if he doesn't exist anymore? And Gordon says he must. Bruce spies on Selina, following her to a masquerade ball being hosted by Miranda Tate, a rich businesswoman who invested a lot of money into his fusion project. When Bruce arrives at the party, he activates a gadget that breaks the cameras of all the paparazzi. I like the idea of Bruce just casually pulling out gadgets to defeat paparazzi. Like, fuck having a secret identity, just hit him with a batarang while you're at it. There should be a scene where he sprays them with a bat-repellent reporter spray. Also, this gadget would be super useful for an authoritarian regime. Wayne Enterprises makes a lot of those. Bruce runs into Miranda and tells her he hates charity balls because the money goes towards the party, not the cause, and they exist to feed the ego of the host. Take that, Miranda. Miranda says the money does go to the cause and that you have to invest to restore balance to the world. Wait, restoring balance? Why does that sound familiar and vaguely evil? Miranda says that Bruce pretends to be apathetic, but men who don't care don't spend half their fortune on a plan to save the world and don't go into hiding when that plan fails. She means the fusion project, not being Batman. Or does she? Bruce dances with Selina and they have flirty dialogue. Bruce reveals that he knows Catwoman lives in a cheap apartment, meaning she's in debt to powerful people. She says she wants to start fresh, but no one can start fresh because of those dang cell phones recording everything. Selina says she only steals from the rich and warns that there's a storm coming for Bruce and his rich friends. They're all gonna wonder how they ever thought they could live so large and leave so little to the rest of us. Also, she steals Bruce's car. They shot this bitch in IMAX for some fucking reason. Bruce talks to Lucius about Wayne Enterprises being broke, and Lucius says that Daggett is trying to take control of the company. He tells Bruce to show the failed fusion reactor to Miranda. He also shows Bruce's gear room, and hold on, has this just been sitting here for 8 years? I know he had to take a secret elevator, but there has to be a second entrance for Bruce to get the vehicles in and out. How has no one noticed this? There's an entire floor of the building that exists just to store Batmobiles. How isn't the frickin' janitor wandered in and learned that Bruce was Batman? Also, Lucius gives Batman a new helicopter thingy called the Bat, which Wayne Enterprises developed to be used for urban pacification. This company is a war crime factory. I mean, seriously, why do they care about Daggett trying to take over Wayne Enterprises? Because they'll start producing weapons? They already produce fucking weapons! They produce so many weapons! This urban pacification helicopter, it has missiles! It is armed with missiles! Like, I get that Lucius probably won't hand the helicopter over to the military, but why did you make it in the first place? Why would you make a missile-armed helicopter if you don't want it to be used by the military? So Batman can use it? Batman doesn't kill people! That's his one thing! Why are you building helicopters with missiles if you don't want Batman to kill people with them? Also, Lucius mentions that there's a problem with the autopilot software and tells Bruce that maybe he should fix it when he gets the chance, because I guess Bruce is a programmer. I mean, that's never been established, but I guess he can program an autopilot software when he gets the chance. I guess. Bruce gets a cool robot knee that allows him to kick hard enough to shatter brick, and also, presumably all the bones in his foot. Like, your foot is still made out of bone and meat, Bruce! Stop kicking brick walls! Alfred tells Bruce rumors he's heard about Bane, that Bane was born in this horrible prison called the Pit, which is located in a more ancient part of the world. You know, that place. The place that is old. The ancient part. I mean, look at this map. Look at this map of the world. You can clearly see which part is the ancient part. Anyway, Bane was born in the prison but escaped and was trained by Ra's al Ghul. Then he got kicked out of the League for being too extreme, apparently. Alfred doesn't want Bruce to fight Bane, but Bruce says Gotham needs him. Alfred says it needs his resources, his knowledge, his ability to build affordable public transport. Not his body, not his life. That time has passed. Bruce says he tried helping as Bruce Wayne and failed because a single project did not completely solve the biggest issue of our era. Alfred says that he can fail as Bruce, but can't afford to fail as Batman. Bruce says that Alfred's afraid that if he goes back out there, he'll fail. Alfred says he's afraid that Bruce wants to fail. He's afraid that Bruce is doing this because he wants to die. Cut to the Gotham Stock Exchange. Bane arrives wearing a motorcycle helmet and, yes! Finally! A metal detector in Gotham! Progress! This city has actually improved since The Dark Knight. I take back everything I have ever said about this movie. The Harvey Dent Act did fix Gotham because now they have fucking metal detectors. Bane beats up the security guards and his men, disguised as proletariat workers, shoot up the stock trading screens. A stock trader says there's no money here for Bane to steal. Bane says, why else would you people be here? Dope ass line. Bane forces the trader to open the stock trading terminal, and I can't tell if it's this scene or the fingerprints from a shattered bullet scene in The Dark Knight that is a bigger demonstration of the fact that Christopher and Jonathan Nolan do not understand how anything works. So Bane's plan is to bankrupt Bruce Wayne by making risky stock trades in his name. He's able to do this because he had Selina steal Bruce's fingerprints, and as we all know, the stock exchange uses fingerprint scanners to verify people's identities. And also, you can only do stock trades in person at the stock exchange. Remote trading doesn't exist in this world. You know, fine. Let's suspend our disbelief and accept that Bane can make fake trades by showing up at the stock exchange. Sure. But why does he have to shoot it up? Like, just have one of your goons walk up to the desk and make the trades. No one would notice. Instead, he causes a big commotion that draws the police in, and then Bane has to run away while carrying a stock exchange iPad, which is able to get a great signal somehow when they go through a tunnel, and hold on to it for long enough for the trade to go through. And neat, but you could have just done the trading at the stock exchange. What benefit do you get from shooting up the stock exchange while you're making the trades? Also, robbing Wayne in such a big dramatic way should make it obvious that the trades are fraudulent and allow him to get his money back. Doing it in this big risky way where half of your men get arrested actually makes the plan less likely to succeed, Bane. I think I get it now. Bane's just a fucking drama queen. He can't help himself. He will ignore any and all easier solutions in favor of blowing up a plane mid-flight to kidnap a man who he had already kidnapped because he's a fucking drama queen. And because he kills his minions constantly, no one has the guts to tell him that his plans are fucking stupid. That's why Ross kicked him out. Not because he was too radical, because Bane was too stupid. Anyway, Foley gets into an argument with a security guard about whether they should send cops in to rescue the stockbrokers being held prisoner, with Foley saying he's not going to risk his men for the guard's money. The guard says that it isn't his money, it's everyone's, and that the US dollar will be worthless if the stock market gets robbed. No, it won't. Maybe in this movie's bizarro world, you could crash the US dollar by hacking a stock exchange computer, but you couldn't do that in real life. You can't make the stock market crash by robbing Bruce Wayne. Also, Foley, I feel like the priority should be the safety of the hostages. You know, just saying. Bane and his mercenaries ride away on motorcycles with the stockbrokers strapped to their bikes as human shields. The police chased after them, and then, dun dun dun, it's the Batman! Batman chases Bane and saves a few of the stockbrokers. Foley, upon seeing Batman, orders every cop in Gotham to chase after Batman, which allows Bane to get away.
Batman drives his motorcycle into a dark alley, then flies away in his new Bat hover car. I guess he just leaves the motorcycle there? Like, I guess the cops impound it. He has it again later in the movie, and we don't see him stealing it back, so I don't know how he got the motorcycle back. Actually, hold on. Do they not have radar in Gotham? Because, I feel like the big helicopter thing would be super easy to track. Meanwhile, Selina attacks Daggett to get the payment he offered her, a device called the Clean Slate that can erase all information about someone from every database on Earth. Add this to the list of fucked up authoritarian technology that exists in this setting. Daggett says that the Clean Slate doesn't really exist. Bane's goons show up to protect Daggett, and Batman saves Selina. Back at the Batcave, Bruce and Alfred argue if he should give a flash drive he took from one of Bane's men over to the cops. Batman says that they can't analyze it because they don't have his Super Batman technology, and he won't give them his Super Batman hacking tools because he doesn't trust them to not weaponize them. Hot take? Bruce is right. Don't give the police super hacking tools. Bruce says he had to go out that night because the police couldn't stop Bane. Alfred says maybe they could have if he hadn't wasted their time. He asks what Bruce will do when he has to fight Bane. Bruce says, I'll just fight harder, which is a super smart strategy, Brucey boy. Alfred says, fuck this shit, I'm out, I quit. He says that he's buried enough members of the Wayne family. Maybe, by leaving, he can make Bruce understand that he isn't Batman anymore. He says that Bruce used to think of a life beyond being Batman. Bruce says that Rachel was that life. He can't move on because she couldn't. I can't believe that lying to protect Bruce's feelings was a mistake. It's strange that it took Alfred 8 years to realize that. Alfred reveals actually he lied in the last movie. Rachel did move on. Bruce calls him a liar. Alfred accepts his hatred, accepts losing Bruce because it might mean saving his life. Alfred leaves. Lucius explains that Bruce's Bat credit card account is overdrawn. Now, John Daggett's going to take control of Wayne Enterprises. The only way to stop this from happening is to convince Miranda Tate to take over instead, and the only way to do that is to show her Bruce's big-ass nuclear fusion reactor. Turns out it works, except Bruce pretended it didn't after Dr. Pavel, that guy from the beginning, wrote a paper about how to weaponize nuclear fusion reactions. Does he mean a hydrogen bomb? Because we already have those. We've had those for a while. This isn't new information. I can get Bruce, in principle, being worried about his nuclear fusion research being used to create a bomb, but that bomb already exists. It was invented in the 50s. Also, the scientists who built the fusion reactor are presumably still alive. When they got fired, they wouldn't have stopped working on the discovery that would solve global warming and win them a Nobel Prize. They would have built this exact device for some other lab. There's no way that physicists would invent fusion and then just not tell anyone how it worked. Miranda says we don't have to worry about someone turning the reactor into a bomb because Dr. Pavel died in that plane crash. Bruce, in a rare moment of realism, points out that someone else will inevitably figure out how to turn a fusion reactor into a bomb. But not how to build a fusion reactor in the first place, I guess. Wait, so that whole opening scene where they killed Dr. Pavel was pointless for Bane's plan? But the scene was so cool and not at all dumb! Also, in real life, this conversation doesn't really make much sense. In real life, we don't have commercially viable fusion reactors, but we do have fission reactors, and at least according to MIT, you can't turn nuclear reactors into bombs. They utilize similar processes, but this and this are not the same thing. Turning a nuclear reactor into a bomb is about as complicated as making a bomb from scratch. Also, now that I think about it, how does that fusion reactor even work? Where's the water? Because that's how nuclear reactors work. They heat water, which spins turbines. This is just sitting in a basement. Is it generating power via turning the nuclear juices into electricity? Because I don't think that's how that works. Bruce begs Miranda to hide the reactor until they can keep it safe, destroying it if she has to. Miranda asks if he wants her to destroy the world's best chance for a sustainable future. Bruce says that if the world's not ready yet, yes. Miranda says if he wants to save the world, he has to start trusting it. So, skipping ahead, but Bruce is completely right here within the context of the film. The fusion reactor does get weaponized. And I wonder, given all of the film's other questionable fear-mongering,
Is this a jab at nuclear energy? Like, we can't move away from fossil fuels. What if the terrorists turn the reactors into nukes? A thing that can definitely happen in real life. These dang environmentalists are misguided and naive. The only solution is to stick with coal. Consequences be damned. Miranda takes control of Wayne Enterprises. Daggett complains about this to Bane, but Bane says that the plan is proceeding as expected. Daggett yells that he's in charge, and Bane asks, "Do you feel in charge?" Daggett says that he paid Bane a fortune, and Bane asks, "And that gives you power over me?" Bane says that he's Gotham's reckoning, come to end the borrowed time you've all been living on. Daggett says he's true evil, and Bane calls himself unnecessary evil as he kills John Daggett. Bruce's car gets repossessed, so Blake gives him a ride home. He asks why Bruce wore a mask, and Bruce says it was to protect the people close to him. The idea was to be a symbol that Batman could be anybody. Bruce asks Selina to take him to Bane, offering to give her the clean slate in return because I guess it does exist. Meanwhile, Blake figures out that Daggett was doing some construction work in the tunnels for Bane. Bruce has sex with Miranda, then goes off to fight Bane. Bane is waiting for him. Turns out Selina turned on Batman in return for Bane letting her go. Bane beats the living shit out of Batman. It is a fucking curb stomp. This is honestly kind of pathetic on Bruce's end. He stopped training for 8 years and then thought, "Oh, I can beat up Bane. I'll just hit him harder. I'm gonna be strong. I'm Batman." After defeating Batman, Bane presses a button which causes the roof of a secret sewer lair to collapse. Batmobiles fall from the ceiling because Bane's lair is beneath Wayne Enterprises. I was going to mock this for just being a coincidence, but actually, this makes sense, because in Begins, it was a big plot point that the center of the sewers was below the tower. Bane breaks Batman's back, but doesn't kill him because drama queen! Instead, he takes him to the pit, that prison Bane grew up in. Bane explains that he didn't kill Bruce because Bruce is suicidal, so killing him won't be a punishment. His punishment is to sit in prison, watching on TV as Bane slowly destroys Gotham, giving the people hope, then snatching it away.
When Batman's city is in ashes, then he has Bane's permission to die.
I can't do a fucking Bane voice, but I keep trying. Adding to Bruce's torture is the fact that the pit has a big opening at the top of it that theoretically anyone can climb out of. But the climb is too hard, and that breaks their spirits. Who designed this fucking prison? Like, how did you get this approved? Like, you go to your boss and say, "Hey, I built that prison you asked me to build." "Okay, cool. Why is there a big fucking hole in it?" "To make them sad." "Well, that murderer guy just escaped and stabbed 13 people. "Yeah, but he was really sad before he broke out." You know, Bane could have just killed Bruce while he was unconscious. That was an option. Like, giving him a chance to escape so he'll feel sadder is really dumb. But I'm not going to call this a plot hole because the fact that Bane is a fucking drama queen is a consistent thing in this movie. It's his most consistent character trait. A few scenes later, Bruce watches another prisoner attempt to escape the pit, but fail. Another prisoner tells him that only one person has ever escaped the pit. Bruce assumes he means Bane. The prisoner doesn't correct him because he thinks it'll be funny to imagine the look on Batman's face he'll get when he gets Shyamalan later in the film. Back in Gotham, Blake arrests Selina. They throw her in the men's prison where the other prisoners threaten to rape her. Apparently this is legal because of the Dent Act. Bane shows up to a board meeting and kidnaps Lucius and Miranda to force them to turn on the reactor. Apparently Bruce set it up so that any two members of the famously corrupt and shitty Wayne Enterprises board of directors could turn it on. Why'd you set it up that way, Bruce? Why not make it so only you could turn it on? Or only Alfred, or Fox, or whatever? Why let Earl from Begins, or Daggett from this movie, have access to your fusion reactor you think could be used as a bomb? Bane's mercenaries bring out Dr. Pavel, who turns the reactor into a nuke. Based on how the film is edited, this only takes him like 20 minutes, which is surprising for a theoretical physicist. Like, he isn't one of the engineers that built this specific machine. He's a theoretical physicist, but that means he's capable of turning this machine that he's never seen before into a bomb, somehow. Pavel warns that because the core is out of the, holding arm thingies, that the nuke will decay and explode in a few months. Apparently this prediction is completely accurate down to the exact second, because as we later see, there is a timer on the bomb counting down to the estimated moment he gave where the bomb would go off, and it is completely accurate down to the second.
Like, Pavel did not make a time bomb. It's going to explode because of nuclear decay. Except, for some reason, he has this timer that tracks that perfectly down to the second.
Gordon sends all of the cops into the sewers to rescue the board members. All of them. He sends every single cop except for himself, Foley, and Blake into one small location. This is the 4th time they've tried this. We have sending the cops into the Narrows and Begins, all of them attending the funeral in the Dark Knight, sending all the cops after Batman early in this movie, and now this. This never works. Stop sending every single cop in the city into a specific location. Blake realizes that Bane has planted bombs in the sewers, but he's too late. Cut to a football stadium, this symbol of American normalcy. A child sings the national anthem because subtlety is for cowards. The game begins, and then the bomb goes off.
The tunnels collapse, imprisoning the cops. The bridges collapse, separating Gotham from the outside world.
And at the stadium, the field falls out from beneath them as the football players are running. A normal, happy day suddenly made horrifying. Bane emerges, his minions dragging the nuke. He orders the people of Gotham to take control of their city, to claim what is rightfully theirs. He calls the nuke the instrument of their liberation. Pavel explains that it is a bomb and that he is the only person on the planet who can disarm it for some reason. Bane snaps his neck. Bane explains that someone in Gotham has the detonator to the nuke, and that if there is any interference from the outside world, or if anyone attempts to flee, the Trigger Man will detonate the bomb. At the Pentagon, a general orders fighter pilots to fall back to leave the city in Bane's hands. Soldiers parley with Bane's men on the sole remaining bridge. The soldier captain says that Bane doesn't have enough men to keep 12 million people from leaving Gotham, which implies that in the 8 years since the last one, 60% of Gotham's population just fucking died. How did you go from 30 million to 12 million? What happened? Why did everyone fucking die, man? Bane's goon says that the army's going to guard the bridge because if they let people leave Gotham, Bane's Trigger Man will set off the nuke. Bruce watches a news conference where the president says he will not negotiate with terrorists.
But, you know, in this scenario, maybe they gotta negotiate with those terrorists. He says that the government hasn't abandoned Gotham. And to be fair, he isn't lying. In a later scene, he has soldiers sneak in to disarm the nuke. They all get hanged by Bane because, as we all know, there's only one dude bad enough to save Gotham. Gordon, who is hiding with Blake following an assassination attempt, wants to find a way to talk to the people because he's the last remaining symbol of law and order. Before he can, Bane gives a press conference at Blackgate Prison, where 1,000 men and one Selina have been imprisoned under the Dent Act. He says Harvey Dent was held up as a shining example of justice and good, but he was a false idol to placate the people of Gotham, to stop them from tearing down this corrupt city and rebuilding it the way it should have been rebuilt generations ago. Bane reads Gordon's letter, where Gordon says the Batman didn't kill Harvey Dent. He saved Jimmy Jr., then took the blame so Gordon could bring security to Gotham, using Harvey as a martyr. The letter ends with Gordon, ashamed of praising the madman who tried to murder his son, resigning. Do you think that, 10 years after this movie takes place, there will be, Columbus Day style debates about whether or not kids should celebrate Harvey Dent Day? He was a vile murderer. Yeah, but he's part of our heritage. Why do you hate Gotham City? You wanting to get rid of that statue of Harvey Dent and teach kids about his crimes is erasing history. Blake is disgusted. Gordon says there's a point where the structures fail you when the rules aren't weapons anymore, they're shackles. He says that if Blake ever finds himself in such a moment of crisis, he hopes that Blake has a friend to plunge their hands into the filth so he can keep his clean. Blake says Gordon's look pretty filthy to him. Bane asks if the people of Gotham accept Gordon's resignation, if they accept the resignation of all the liars, all of the corrupt. The prisoners cheer. Bane blasts open Blackgate. He says that they will take Gotham from the corrupt, from the rich, from the oppressors of generations who've kept them down with the myth of opportunity and give it back to the people. We see rioting, we see rich people being mugged, poor people drinking champagne. Selina and her friend take a rich person's house. Selina says a family lived here, and her friend says it's everyone's home now. At this point, now that Bane has taken over Gotham, I want to ask, what is this film about? And I mean, it's about Bruce getting over his death wish and about him inspiring Blake, but
politically, what is this movie about? A lot of commentators at the time argued that this film was about Occupy Wall Street, this populist, anti-rich protest that happened right before the film came out. Nolan denied the film being about Occupy, and I don't think he was lying. This isn't a movie about Occupy Wall Street specifically, but it is a film about populism, and it is a film about hatred of the rich. It is a movie about these universal political ideas that are far, far older than Occupy Wall Street. Hell, it's pretty clear that this film was inspired not by Occupy Wall Street, but by the French Revolution, and more specifically, the novel A Tale of Two Cities. Bane's main minion guy is named Barsaud, and Daggett's henchman that tried to kill Selina is named Stryver. Both of these names are shared with characters from A Tale of Two Cities. There's a scene where Bane knits, which is apparently also a reference to A Tale of Two Cities, and Gordon flat out reads from that book at the end of the movie. Speaking of reading other people's writing, I'm just going to read out a Rolling Stone interview Nolan gave about this movie.
In this new movie, you have Bane more or less trick Gotham's 99% into rising up against the rich. Is that intended as an anti-Occupy Wall Street statement?
I've had many conversations with people who have seen the film the other way around. We throw a lot of things against the wall to see if it sticks. We put a lot of interesting questions in the air, but that's simply a backdrop for the story. What we're really trying to do is show the cracks of society, show the conflicts that somebody would try to wedge open. We're going to get wildly different interpretations of what the film is supporting and not supporting, but it's not doing any of those things. It's telling a story. If you're saying, have you made a film that's supposed to be criticizing the Occupy Wall Street movement? Well, obviously that's not true.
But the movie certainly suggests that there's a great danger of populist movements being pushed too far.
If the populist movement is manipulated by somebody who is evil, that surely is a criticism of the evil person. You could also say that the conditions the evil person is exploiting are problematic and should be addressed.
You must have your own opinions about this.
Well, I've got all sorts of opinions, but this isn't what we're doing here. I love when people get interested in the politics of it, when they see something in it that moves them in some way, but I'm not being disingenuous when I say that we write from a place of, what's the worst thing our villain Bane can do? What are we most afraid of? He's going to come in and turn our world upside down. That has happened to other societies throughout history many times, so why not here? Why not Gotham? We want something that moves people and gets under the skin.
Some people would say inherently from the beginning that Batman is a right-wing character who establishes law and order by pummeling criminals with his fists.
Yes, if you assume Gotham is the same as a place like New York City, but that's not the case. The corruption that drives Bruce Wayne to become Batman is very extreme. So, your concept of does the end justify the means shifts according to the backdrop. And so the challenge of Batman Begins was to make us okay with the idea of vigilantism. Films genuinely aren't intended to be political. You don't want to alienate people, you want to create a universal story.
A lot of people would argue that all art is political.
But what's politics?
So would Bruce Wayne vote for Mitt Romney?
Before or after Bruce goes broke?
Okay, a few things. First off, I kinda hate Nolan now. Stop being cheeky. Batman will vote for Mitt Romney because he's rich. What does the word political mean? Shut the fuck up. You know what you're being asked. Give a real goddamn answer. Also, it's very telling that he thinks the idea that talking about wealth inequality and poverty would make the film not a universal story anymore. Like, there's this idea that if this film touches on political topics in any way, that makes it stop being universal, except political topics are universal. Everyone in this country, everyone in the world is affected by these issues. They're very universal, and ignoring them and pretending, well, that doesn't really matter in this world, that isn't making it universal. That's pretending that those problems don't exist. Also, you can't have it be, this is Batman, but he's very realistic in our real world. And also, well, I mean, yeah, it's in our real world, but this isn't New York. Gotham's like a crazy fantasy place. So actually, there's no political insight to be taken from Batman's actions because this movie is so different from our own, but also it is realistic and it takes place in the real world. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make a version of Batman that is super realistic and faces real issues, but also it's not realistic. He doesn't have to touch on politics because it's a crazy, wacky fantasy city. Ooh!
I think what this cemented for me is that Nolan is kind of dumb and doesn't really know anything about anything. He insists that his movies aren't about politics. They're just about populist revolutions against the bourgeoisie.
That's politics, Chris. Do you think politics just means modern American electoralism? Do you think that the French Revolution wasn't political?
Anyway, I think Nolan was honest when he said that this movie was about what he's afraid of. The whole trilogy is about fear. It's about what makes Nolan uncomfortable. And what makes Nolan uncomfortable is anarchy. It's the world being turned upside down. It's 9/11. It's the idea that Americans are safe. The idea that danger and violence are just scary things you see on the news happening to foreigners. It's these ideas being proven foolish. The perfect encapsulation of this fear that defines this trilogy is that football scene. It's this symbol of Americana, something ordinary, something beloved, suddenly being destroyed. It's the Star-Spangled Banner being silenced by terrorist bombs. It's tattered American flags blowing in the winds. It's suddenly being forced to live in a world that is scary. And I don't think those fears are bad inherently. Terrorism is scary. Terrorism is horrible. I feel nothing towards 9/11, but I can understand logically how scary it must have been to stand there and watch a building collapse as 3,000 souls were snuffed out as the world became something you didn't recognize. I don't think Nolan is wrong to fear terrorism. But it is wrong to let that fear justify evil. To let that fear of terrorism lead to you being okay with torture or spying or invading Iraq. It isn't evil to be afraid. It's evil to let that fear make you into a fascist. It's evil to choose authoritarianism because you're afraid. And the fears Nolan shows in these films, it isn't just a fear of terrorism. It's a fear of any change to the status quo. It's fear of populism, of people hating the rich, of people fighting for freedom, for the right to live a decent life. It's fear of poor people rising up. It's fear of prison reform. It's fear of green energy. It's fear of people not respecting the police enough. It's fear of any change at all to the status quo.
This movie is about Nolan's fear that normal, institutionalized forms of evil will be defeated because the banality of evil is familiar. Yes, poverty and homelessness and police brutality, these are horrible, horrible things, but they're part of life, and getting rid of them, that means changing things, and that means the world becoming a better place, yes, but it means it becoming a different place, a place that Nolan doesn't recognize.
This is a deeply, deeply conservative film, not an American grand old party film. Conservative in its deepest meaning, as in opposing change and social progress, because that's what scares Nolan.
Here's a question for you. Is Bane a communist? And the answer is no, because Christopher Nolan doesn't know what that word means. Bane isn't any real ideology. He's vaguely populist, vaguely Marxist, but there's no depth to anything he says, because for him to have depth and actually believe in something, then Nolan would have to understand those beliefs. And this isn't a film about understanding revolutionary ideals. It's a film about being scared about things you heard on the news and barely understand. The talks of destroying Western civilization or putting power in the hands of the people, these things are set dressing. This isn't a movie about communism, it's about the status quo being threatened, and Bane having random left-wing quotes isn't a substitute for Bane being a three-dimensional character with actual recognizable beliefs. I wonder, does Chris Nolan think the French Revolution was a bad thing? Because you can certainly argue that the Reign of Terror went too far, or that the revolution ended in tragedy because it traded one king for another. But I would argue that doesn't mean it was wrong to revolt. It doesn't mean it isn't good that the class system was abolished. The fact that democracy was crushed in France does not mean it was not noble to fight for democracy. But in this film, fighting to change the system is inherently evil. There are no good people fighting for a just cause than being corrupted. Bane's group are evil from the start. They do a revolution because that is the scariest, most evil thing possible. They do a revolution not because they want to change Gotham, but because they know their revolutions are evil and will make Gotham a worse place, and they just want things to be horrible because they're evil. And the implication this leaves is the political change inherently is a bad thing. That it would be bad for there to be a revolution in the US that put power in the hands of the people. Not because of any evils that revolution would hypothetically bring, but because wanting to have a revolution in the first place is evil. Because wanting change, wanting to upset the status quo, no matter how horrible that status quo is evil. I mean, the Joker made the same exact critique, and to reiterate, the Joker is supposed to be wrong about everything.
You can tell stories about tragic revolutions. You can tell stories about populist movements turning to tyranny. A Tale of Two Cities is that story. But The Dark Knight Rises could never be a real story about a revolution being corrupted because it isn't a real revolution. Bane doesn't believe in anything he says. He's just pretending to be a revolutionary because that makes Batman sad. He isn't trying to liberate Gotham. He's trying to nuke it out of revenge. The first video I ever made was about this trope in superhero stories of the evil revolutionary the hero has to stop. I called that video Superheroes and the Status Quo. It wasn't very good. Anyway, close to 5 years later, after a lot of reflection, I think that you can tell stories about revolutionaries going too far, about challenges to the status quo going wrong, and have it be a good story. But you have to do it with respect. You have to treat the actual status quo as a real problem and have characters choose other ways to save the world than the radical ways their enemies employ. You can have a Killmonger in your story if you have a Black Panther and if you write it well enough. But that isn't what this movie is. This movie never even entertains the idea that wanting to change the status quo could ever be anything other than sinister because change scares Christopher Nolan. And the problem with that is, how could Batman ever save Gotham if to save something is to change it? How can you be a hero if making the world a better place is too terrifying to even consider? Back in the pit, an imprisoned doctor fixes Bruce's back, allowing him to get back to training with 0 lasting injuries from his spinal cord injury. Foul prisoner tells Bruce that Bane got his face fucked up by another prisoner, forcing him to wear a mask that pumps him full of painkillers. He also tells the story of a mercenary's wife being thrown into the pit, and a child being born in the pit and escaping. Bruce assumes this child was Bane, and the prisoner, who damn well knows it wasn't, doesn't bother to correct him, because again, the look on his face when he realizes he was tricked will be priceless. Bruce hallucinates a conversation with Roz, who reveals that the child who escaped the prison was his child. This is just a hallucination, but this fact is later shown to be accurate, which means either this hallucination is a ghost, or that Bruce made a lucky guess. Anyway, Roz says the government is going on to save him, must be allowed to die, and blah 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 blah. Fuck off! Bruce tries to escape but fails. One of the other prisoners says that he's too privileged to escape. He tries and fails again, leading to a flashback of the well, and oh god damn it, this is just the fucking well again, isn't it? One of the prisoners says that Bruce doesn't fear death anymore, and that this makes him weak because he's lost the will to survive. Bruce says that he fears dying here while his city burns with no one there to save it. Bruce climbs again, this time without the safety rope. He leaps for a ledge and finally makes it to freedom. So, Batman needed to do something risky to prove he wasn't suicidal? What? Like, didn't him using the rope mean he did fear death? This is confusing. Jokes aside, I do actually like Bruce's arc in this movie. It's about him learning to live again, about him deciding that he doesn't want to die in battle, that he wants to live and be happy. And by choosing to live, he is able to stop Bane. By saving himself, he saves Gotham, and I like that as a character arc. Back in Gotham, it is winter, meaning this is a Christmas... Oh, shit! Back in Gotham, it is winter, meaning this is a Christmas special now. Wait, hold on.
When your city is in ashes, then you have my permission to open your Christmas presents. You merely adopted the holly jolly. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see Easter until I was already a man.
Daggett's sidekick, Stryver, is sentenced for the crime of being a rich dude, which is a perfectly realistic thing that was definitely going to happen in America if all those dastardly protesters got their way. The judge is Scarecrow. He is still free at the end of the movie, by the way. Scarecrow keeps getting away with it. The Joker wishes. Actually, come to think of it, what happened to the Joker? I mean, they didn't have him reappear because Heath Ledger died, but he isn't set free from Blackgate, so he must not be in Gotham. Is the Joker in Guantanamo? Anyway, Stryver is sentenced without a trial. Scarecrow gives Stryver a choice between death and exile. Stryver chooses exile and is sent to walk over the frozen river. It breaks and he dies. Curse you, global warming! If only there was a way to power homes without coal! By now, it's 18 hours before the nuke goes off. Gordon and his men are planning to attack the nuke truck to disarm it, but Foley is missing. Turns out he's hiding at home because he's scared of Bane. Selina saves a kid from some criminals. Bruce approaches her from the shadows. He asks her to help him save Gotham, in return for him giving her the clean slate, which is real, I guess. Meanwhile, Gordon, his men, and Miranda are arrested by Bane's men. Bane decides to move Miranda to City Hall, while Gordon and the cops are sentenced in the kangaroo court. Gordon complains about not getting a lawyer and the lack of due process. Oh, so now it's wrong for people to get kangaroo court show trials. Scarecrow steals my joke and points out that Gordon did the same thing with the Dent Act. And this would be a biting bit of commentary about Gordon's hypocrisy if those convictions weren't portrayed as an unquestionable good in the last one. Of course, the difference is when Gordon does it, he's arresting bad people without trials, and Bane is arresting good people without trials. Due process should only be given to the innocent, don't you know? When asked, Gordon chooses death instead of exile over the ice. Scarecrow sentences him to death via exile. Late at night, they are marched onto the ice. Gordon finds a flare and a path made of kerosene. A familiar voice tells him to light it. Fire spreads across the ice onto a bridge, setting ablaze a giant Batman logo. Now, was this a waste of the precious few hours Batman had left before the nuke goes off? Not necessarily. Batman doing this inspires the people of Gotham, gives them hope. Although, it also lets Bane know that Batman is back, so actually probably not the smartest move, Brucey. Meanwhile, Blake tries to free the imprisoned cops. He's attacked by Bane's men, but Batman saves him and blows open the tunnels, freeing the cop army. As dawn approaches, Batman and his allies prepare for war. Gordon and his rebels plan to attack the nuke truck to plant a signal jammer on the bomb to drive it to the reactor so Fox can stabilize the core. Meanwhile, Blake leads a bus full of orphans and a bunch of civilians to the bridge to try and escape if Gordon fails. Selina blows up the tunnels so people can flee that way. And finally, Batman leads the police army into battle. They storm City Hall to take Gotham back from Bane. Before heading into battle, Batman asks Catwoman to stay and fight. She tells him to save himself, that he doesn't owe the people of Gotham anything. He's already given them everything. Batman says, not everything. Not yet. We see tattered American flags blowing in the wind. The police march towards City Hall. Foley is at the head of the army, having been inspired to fight by Batman. They charge towards Bane's men and immediately get gunned down! What are you doing? You're running at Bane's mercenaries so you can melee them? You have guns! Shoot them! Don't fucking run into machine gun fire, you imbeciles! Idiots! The GCPD are a bunch of idiots! Batman put his faith in a bunch of idiots! It is specifically mentioned that this army Batman's leading contains 3,000 men! Bane's army contains a few dozen mercenaries, plus some of the 1,000 inmates he freed from Blackgate. Like, this shouldn't even be a fight, except the cops forget that they have guns and just run into machine gun fire! Also, did Batman forget that he was a ninja? Like, reclaiming City Hall, that isn't actually the priority. Stopping the nuke is. If you stop the nuke, instead of relying on a bunch of emaciated POW cops, you can have the entire US Army march in and retake the city with ease. Plus, launching a frontal assault is liable to make Bane's Triggerman say fuck it and press the button before Gordon can plant the jammer. This is a dumb plan! You're a ninja, Bruce! You can sneak into City Hall and ambush Bane and then interrogate him, because all this big cop brawl accomplishes is happening in the background as Batman fights Bane one-on-one. But sure, fine, whatever, we got a big melee fight. Cops versus revolutionaries. Yay! I sure do love scenes of cops beating people up. In real life, when I see a big group of people demanding political change and see a bunch of cops run in and start beating the shit out of them, I of course always cheer for the cops. This doesn't remind me of anything horrible at all. Yay, cops, beat up those revolutionaries. Because in this Fox News wet dream of a film, the people who don't like capitalism also want to commit suicide via nuclear bomb because they're evil and want to watch the world burn. Thank God we have the corrupt, dim-witted, trigger-happy, rape-loving Gotham cops that were fighting Batman 2 hours ago, because what would we ever do without a strong, militarized police force to keep us safe? I'm not gonna lie, this movie kinda sucks. Like, you want to tell a story about a revolution going wrong. Okay, sure, there are real-life revolutions that turn to tyranny. I'm intellectually honest enough to acknowledge that. But the idea that the only defense against authoritarianism is the police perplexes me. Like, oh, you want to make a critique of the Russian Revolution? I don't think you're smart enough to do that, Chris, but sure, go ahead. What's that? The thing that saves everyone from those dangerous communists is the police? Are you sure? Like, when revolutions go wrong, the police are not the ones who stand in the way of the authoritarian government. They are the ones who kill people on the behalf of the authoritarian government. The people who throw you in the gulag are the police. The people who raid your home so you can be sent to the gas chambers are the police. The people who shoot you for striking for better pay. The people who deport you for protesting a genocide. The people who arrest you during the reign of terror and send you to the guillotine are the fucking police! Taking orders from the revolutionaries who seize control of the government, sure, but they're still the fucking police. Like, the idea that the only thing that can save us from authoritarianism is the men who shoot people for the government is ridiculous. The police, by the most charitable interpretation, have zero moral compasses whatsoever and just follow the orders of whoever's in charge. But sure, the shitty, corrupt Gotham cops can be the heroes, I guess. Batman has his big one-on-one fight and defeats Bane. Batman demands he tell him where the Trigger Man is, and then, plot twist, Miranda is the evil Trigger Man. She stabs Bruce because she's actually Raz's daughter, Talia. She was the child that was born in the pit and escaped from it. Except, according to his Darkness speech, Bane was also born in the pit? This is needlessly complicated and exists just to give a plot twist. Anyway, Talia wants to complete her dickhole dad's plan of destroying Gotham because something fear, something populism, something outside agitators. Talia presses the trigger, but the bomb doesn't go off because Gordon has placed the signal blocker. Damn, it's a good thing that she monologued for like 5 straight minutes, thus giving Gordon time to do that. Talia leaves to go protect the nuke truck, ordering Bane to leave Batman alive because she wants him to feel the heat of the bomb. Fucking drama queen. In a shocking moment of character development, Bane abandons his drama queen tendencies. He's learned from his mistakes. As soon as Talia leaves, he tries to kill Batman. Fortunately, Selina changed her mind, kid, and shoots him with the Batbike. Selina and Bruce rush after the nuke truck, hoping to hijack it and drive it to the reactor before the bomb can go off. Bruce shoots the truck with missiles, causing Talia to drive off an overpass and be fatally wounded in the crash. That is 3-4-3. Every single Nolan Batman movie ends with voluntary manslaughter. Unfortunately, as Talia dies, she presses a button that floods the reactor room, meaning there's no way to stop the nuke. Meanwhile, Blake leads his exodus to the bridge. The cops guarding it... Wait, hold up. Why aren't they soldiers? They were soldiers earlier. The cops guarding the bridge refuse to let them through, blowing up the bridge out of fear. You know, in hindsight, Begins is the Chris Nolan Batman movie that has the least interesting things to say about fear, ironically enough. Blake orders the orphans to get on the bus and keep their heads down. The priest says that this is pointless, and Blake gets pissed because he doesn't want the kids to die without hope. And actually, Blake is completely right. Like, we don't know the yield of the nuke. Given the fact that it's a makeshift nuke made in 20 minutes and that it is going off because of decay, not because of targeted explosives like real nukes, it probably isn't an especially big bomb. Like, there's this website you can use to test out what the blast radii of different nuclear weapons would be. If this bomb was the size of, say, the nukes North Korea was testing out at the time this film was made, and it went off in the middle of Manhattan, then someone on the Brooklyn Bridge with their head down would probably live. This is actually really good advice. Now, if the bomb was the size of an actual hydrogen bomb, then... yeah, that's bad news for the kiddos. But Blake doesn't know how big the bomb is. With 2 minutes left on the timer, Batman decides to hook the bomb to the bat and fly it out over the bay, sacrificing himself to save Gotham. He wastes precious few seconds making out with Selina first. Gordon says that the people should know who saved them. Batman says a hero can be anyone. Even a man doing something as simple as putting his coat over a little boy's shoulders. So, Gary Oldman is a good enough actor to sell the fact that as Batman says this, Gordon finally realizes that he's Bruce Wayne. And given the fact that we see Gordon at Bruce's funeral later, like, the audience should have been smart enough to understand that he figured it out. Except, apparently, Nolan didn't trust the audience. Not only do we get a flashback to Gordon putting his coat on Bruce, Gordon says, "Wait a gosh darn minute, boy, oh by gum, I think you might be billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne. I've solved the case." The bat flies away, over the bridge, over the bay. And then, detonation. Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. We hear, via narration, Gordon reading from A Tale of Two Cities. As he does, we see people leaving their homes. We see Bane's men arrested. We see Blake throwing away his police badge. I see a beautiful city and a brilliant people rising from this abyss. I see the lives of which I lay down my life, peaceful, useful, prosperous, and happy. I see that I hold a sanctuary in their hearts and in the hearts of their descendants. Generations hence, it is a far, far better thing that I do than I have ever done. It is a far, far better rest that I go to than I have ever known. There are only 4 men at Bruce's funeral: Gordon, Blake, Fox, and Alfred. Alfred cries as he looks at Thomas and Martha's graves, saying that they trusted him and he failed them. Gordon asks Blake about him quitting the force. Blake says that Gordon was right about structures being shackles. He can't take the injustice, can't stand that no one's ever going to know who saved an entire city. Gordon says they know. It was the Batman. We get an epilogue montage. A statue of Batman is unveiled. Wayne Manor is turned into an orphanage. Lucius learns that Bruce somehow fixed the autopilot? When? When did he do that? The movie cuts to Alfred sitting at that cafe. He looks over to see, what's this? It's Bruce and Selina! Bruce is still alive, and just like Alfred always wanted, he's ignoring him! Quick question. How? How is he still alive? Like, he fixed the autopilot, cool. How did he get away from the bomb? We see these shots in this order. The Bat over the ocean. Blake watching. Bruce in the cockpit. The Bat way out over the ocean. The timer with 4 seconds left. Blake watching. The nuke going off. In that order. At which point did he get off? When he went over the bridge? Nope. Blake would have seen him. And also, we see him in the cockpit after the Bat is at least a mile from shore. And if he jumped out then, he would still be in the blast radius. Not to mention, in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of winter, while bleeding out from a stab wound. How did he survive? Whatever. I'm not CinemaSins. It doesn't actually matter, because this is a good ending for Bruce. He found a way to live without Batman. He finally decided to live. But that isn't what the movie ends with. Blake is given the location of the Batcave in Bruce's will, which Bruce updated during this movie, I guess? When did he update it? Anyway, as Blake is given his inheritance from the law office, we get the stunning reveal that Blake's real name is Robin via a clerk saying, "You should use your full name. I like that name, Robin." What a clunky fucking line. Anyway, Gordon goes outside to see a new bat signal for calling a new Batman. The film ends with Blake standing in the Batcave surrounded by bats, which he doesn't actually have any childhood fear of, so the symbolism doesn't matter for him. Blake becomes the new Batman because the symbol is everlasting. Batman is forever, but not in a terrible Jim Carrey movie way. There is a new Batman out there protecting Gotham. But should there be? The Dark Knight trilogy puts a lot of emphasis on Batman as a symbol, on the fact that he wants to inspire people, shake them out of their apathy so they fight for Gotham. He inspired Gordon to stand up against the mob. He inspired Brian Hockey Pads to try and be a vigilante. He inspired Foley to march into battle to free Gotham. He inspired Selina to come back and kill Bane with a motorcycle. And now, in the end, he has inspired Blake to take up his mantle to become the new Batman. But isn't that a bad thing? Bruce talks so much about how Gotham shouldn't need Batman. He ties up Hockey Pads and friends because he doesn't want imitators. He fixates on Harvey Dent being the White Knight of Gotham and fixing things without breaking the law. Bruce is pretty clear in his belief that Gotham shouldn't need a Batman, that his work will be done when Gotham is saved, and they will return to law and order, to cops handling crime without aid of a vigilante working outside of the system. And at the end of Rises, there's a new Batman. Bruce has retired, but Gotham hasn't been saved yet. It makes it feel like he wanted Gotham to not need a Batman, not because that's what's good for Gotham, but because that would give him permission to retire and date Rachel. It implies that the problem with vigilantism is that Bruce's dead childhood friend personally didn't like it. When Batman decides to deceive the public at the end of The Dark Knight, this is framed as a good thing. But when Bane reads Gordon's letter, it's framed as being a bad thing. Gordon is painted as being in the wrong for thinking that the rules are shackles. It doesn't feel like Blake is naive for saying Gordon's hands are dirty. Then Blake turns around at the end and says, actually, you were right. The law is a set of shackles holding the police back. Vigilantism is good, so I'm gonna go do that now. This trilogy can't make up its damn mind. Is it good to break the law? Is it good to bend your morals? Is torture acceptable? Is spying acceptable? Is Batman acceptable? And after so much back and forth, the conclusion I feel the trilogy ends with is, yes, these things are acceptable ways to fight crime. Bending your morals is completely fine. It is acceptable for law enforcement to be violent criminals because the dangers of terrorism are too great to keep our hands clean. Except for killing. That's a step too far. That's one line you can never break. Which is honestly an inversion of how people normally see the world. Killing an enemy combatant, that isn't a war crime. Torturing them is, according to the rules of warfare, but Batman is fine with torture and instead draws the line at killing. And The Dark Knight works as a movie because he draws that line. It works because there is this beautiful scene where people, ordinary people, refuse to accept the Joker's ideology, where they say some lines should never be crossed. But apparently the operative word is some, because any other line is fine to cross if the situation is dire enough.
And I make my jokes about Batman being a murderer, but yes, he does kill people, and that undermines his point a bit. He killed Fraser, Roz, Harvey, and Miranda because that was the only way to stop them. And he never sets out to kill these people. He'd be fine with taking them in alive if he could, but the situations he's put in force him to kill them by accident after shooting them with missiles or crashing a train or tackling Harvey off a building. Also, he would have died if Selena Hand shot Bane to death, so maybe Bruce is just wrong about everything, I guess.
That ending where Gordon reads from A Tale of Two Cities and we see the people of Gotham ready for a new dawn, it's a beautiful, beautiful scene, but setting it aside, what has changed? Gotham still needs there to be one man, the one hero hiding in a Batcave, the one man willing to bend his morals, because the rule of law is a set of shackles. Bruce was wrong to think that Harvey could be the one hero of Gotham, but not wrong to think Gotham needed just one man. Bruce was that man, and all that's changed is that Blake is that man now.
I love the boat scene. I love Bruce's funeral. I love that Bruce found the will to live and was able to throw aside his death wish. These films are very, very well crafted, but there are these undercurrents, these ideas that Nolan brings up that make his whole trilogy feel kinda dirty.
Now it's time to play the hot new craze that is sweeping the nation, Fascist Bingo! The game where I see if a Batman counts as a fascist according to the criteria laid out by Robert Paxton in The Anatomy of Fascism and by Umberto Eco in Fascism.
For reference, these are the scorecards for Bronze Age Alan Moore comic Batman, Batman the Animated Series Batman, 60s Batman, Burton Batman, and Schumacher Batman.
Green is a yes, red is a no, and yellow is a kinda. If we give them 1 point for a green and 0.5 for a yellow, then out of a maximum possible score of 23, the scores for these Batmen are 3 for The Killing Joke, 4.5 for DCAU, 1.5 for Adam West, 16.5 for Keaton, and 3 for Kilmer/Clooney. You'll notice the Tim Burton Batman movies were a lot more fascist than Batman is typically. Will Bale's Batman break his record? I don't know. I haven't tallied it yet. Paxton explains fascism as being centered on 9 mobilizing passions. These are the things that drive fascists to evil. The first is a sense of overwhelming crisis beyond the reach of any traditional solutions. Yeah, this one certainly applies, I think. Next is the primacy of the group, toward which one has duty superior to every right, whether individual or universal, and the subordination of the individual to it. This one thankfully doesn't apply, nor has it applied to any of the other Batmans. Fascism is heavily entwined with racism in the belief of a racial hierarchy enforced through violence, and thankfully, we haven't seen any racist Batmans in this project. Yet. Next Christmas, who knows? I know what I'm doing next year, but you don't know. On the other hand, the belief that one's group is a victim, a sentiment that justifies any action without legal or moral limits against its enemies, both internal and external, is going to get a yellow from me. Like, there isn't this focus on the primacy of a racial group, but there is this focus on the idea that the people of Gotham are being victimized. And Batman does justify any action without legal or moral limits against his enemies, with the sole exception of killing. He believes that the victimization of Gotham justifies violence and torture and spying, but the fact that he draws the line at killing just barely keeps us from getting a green. Dread of the group's decline under the corrosive effects of individualistic liberalism, class conflict, and alien influences.
Oh, what's this? Is this an alien influence stirring up class conflict?
Is this Gotham declining because of foreign pseudo-communist revolutionaries? Wow, make this one a green. The need for closer integration of a pure community by consent if possible, or by exclusionary violence if necessary. Once again, Batman isn't racist. On the other hand, the need for authority by natural chiefs, always male, culminating in a national chieftain who alone is capable of incarnating the group's historical destiny. Yep. Batman is that chieftain. The superiority of the leader's instincts over abstract and universal reason, and the beauty of violence and the efficacy of will when they are devoted to the group's success are also both greens. But the right of the chosen people to dominate others without restraint from any kind of human or divine law, right being decided by the sole criterion of the group's prowess within a Darwinian struggle, gets a red. Batman does not believe in a chosen people, doesn't believe might makes right, and does believe in one restraint. It isn't much, but I would argue it keeps this one from applying. Right now we're clocking in at a 5.5 for 9. That's worrying. Echo's 14 traits of fascism are each a little bit more complicated than Paxton, so I'll be giving brief explanations. The cult of tradition is this idea that fascists combine different ancient texts to try and justify their beliefs. The important bit is the idea that all truth already exists and thus no new learning can occur, and this doesn't really apply to Batman. Rejection of modernism is this idea that since the Enlightenment, the West has degenerated into depravity. It's this rejection of liberalism, not the American center-left political party, but liberalism as in its dictionary definition, this political philosophy that emerged in the late 18th century. It's a rejection of the idea of individual rights, which our pro-torture, pro-spying Batman could be argued to be a fan of. And you know what clinches this for me? Echo specifically notes that fascists reject the spirit of 1789. Echo argues that fascists reject the political changes of the French Revolution. Make it a green. Action for action's sake is this idea that fascists hate introspection and distrust intellectuals, and I don't really think this one applies. I can't think of an intellectual in this movie, and Batman does his fair share of introspection. Disagreement is treason. This rejection of distinctions and disagreement as a way to improve knowledge similarly goes in red. Fear of difference. Fascists exploit and exacerbate fear against intruders and outsiders. And while Batman isn't racist, there is this fear against the other, the outsider who doesn't play by society's rules. Fear of foreign terrorists, albeit ones that are inexplicably white. I think this one at least gets a yellow. Appeal to a frustrated middle class is this idea that fascists prey on fears of economic crisis, political humiliation, and the pressure of lower social groups. Batman is a middle class. He is dictionary definition bourgeoisie, but I mean, there sure is that fear of pressure from lower social groups. Remember when Batman loses all of his money? Remember the poor's rioting and taking the homes of all those poor rich people? Yeah, this is a green. Obsession with a plot states that fascists are nationalists who appeal to xenophobia and anti-Semitism. I'm going to give this one a yellow, although I'm a bit hesitant. After all, there is a plot. There is this evil foreign group destroying society, but the fact that they are foreign is downplayed enough for it to not be a green. The enemy is both strong and weak. The enemy is both these all-controlling masterminds of all of society's problems, but also at the same time weak and feeble enough to be overwhelmed by the fascist. I don't think this applies. Like, the Joker's physically weak but tactically dangerous, but Bane is this difficult-to-fight strongman who lives in the sewers. I don't really think this one fits. Pacifism is trafficking with the enemy because life is permanent warfare. This one argues that life is lived for struggle. The idea that there will be a great final battle, a great final solution to issue in the Golden Age. I'm going to give this one a red because Batman retires. He finds a life other than permanent warfare. Contempt for the weak / popular elitism. Members of the in-group are better than outsiders, but also they're inferior to other members of the internal hierarchy. Nope. Batman isn't part of an in-group, and thus he can't think the masses he needs are so weak as to need and deserve a ruler. Everybody is educated to become a hero. The cult of death, the idea that the most heroic thing possible is to die in battle, is completely rejected by Bruce at the end of Rises. His character arc is about ceasing to be impatient to die. Machismo. Fascists transfer their will to sexual matters, leading to a disdain for women, intolerance of non-standard sexual habits, and playing with phallic weapons. I don't think so. I mean, he does still have the rubber suit and the big car and the batarangs, but I don't get a sense that Batman is channeling his sexual frustrations into punching people in this trilogy. Selective populism. The people have a common will, and that will is whatever the fascist says it is, because individual rights and democracy are the enemy. Fascists oppose democracy while claiming to speak for the people. Maybe this one doesn't apply perfectly, there's no mention of elections, but there is this focus on the common will of Gotham, of the people as a whole losing hope. Batman doesn't claim to speak for the common will. Hell, Bane is the one who does that. But I think this framing of the spirit of Gotham is enough to get at least a partial. And finally, newspeak. Deliberately impoverished language to limit reasoning does not apply. All in all, this Batman is a 9? What? That's so low! I was positive that this Batman would be higher than the Burton one. But, admittedly, he gets a lot of leeway for not being a violent murderer.
Keaton's Batman loved murder. This Batman has lines he won't cross. Not many lines, but some. And I guess that's enough to keep him from being fully fascist, according to the bingo. But let's set aside the bingo for a moment. How do I feel? Does this Batman feel like a fascist to me? Not completely. He is reactionary, he is anti-liberal and violent and authoritarian, but I keep going back to that boat scene, that beautiful, beautiful boat scene that says people are good. Last year, the thing that struck me about the Burton films was just how cynical they were. Gotham was a terrible, terrible city full of horrible, horrible people. It didn't feel like it was worth saving. But Bale's Batman believes Gotham isn't beyond saving. He has hope in the ability of the common people to do the right thing. And they prove him right. They show that they are merciful and prove the Joker wrong. They abandon their fear and give their lives to save Gotham from Bane. There is hope at the end of Rises that Gotham could someday be a better place. And that hope didn't exist in the Burton films. I think these films are very, very flawed. I think the politics of these movies, while not necessarily fascist, could very easily metastasize into fascism. But ultimately, no. Batman isn't a fascist in these movies. So where does that leave us? 6 Batmans, 4 of them fine, 1 a bit iffy, 1 really iffy, but none completely unquestionably fascist? Has this whole miniseries been a waste of time? Well, maybe. But next year, I promise, I will be able to say definitively the one version of Batman is a fascist. But that's a story for another day. Until then, I hope you all have a wonderful day. If you celebrate Christmas, then have a happy Christmas. If you don't, then have a happy Tuesday. This year has been really, really rough, and next year I fear maybe even worse. But in those dark days, remember that people are better than you think. That there are people out there who are kind, who will take a stand in the face of evil. It is always darkest before the dawn, but someday that dawn will come. This I am sure of.